The guy screamed in horror that a monster was chasing him. Seeing the girl ahead, Ott nervously asked if Mare was really here all this time. The girl immediately responded and hurried forward. Nokt's boyfriend ordered him to protect him from the monster immediately, and the girl promised that she would do everything possible. Young Mare boldly charged forward, much to Nokt's surprise. The blade of the blade slid across the huge body, and the monster let out one last unbearable roar. The father, the owner of the Big Small Rutherford estate, and his eldest son, Weishart, arrived at the scene. Wiskart was outraged that Nokt had sent the girl to fight instead of him, because it was a disgrace to her father's name. Weishart reminded him that such behavior was unworthy of an aristocrat. Nokt explained that he simply wasn't strong enough to fight, so he asked for help. Wiskart said that Nokt will still have to fight and will get his skill tomorrow. Father Big Small asked not to swear and explained that everyone has their own way in life, and Nokt is not obliged to imitate his brother. Her father advised Nokt to find her goal in life and never turn away from it, and also not to pay attention to other people's words. Wiskart was indignant and asked why his father constantly spoils his younger brother. My father said that he was more concerned about how the orc had managed to get into the estate and that he needed to inspect all the properties immediately. Nokt wondered if everyone had some kind of talent, and there are always those who have chosen the business to their liking, and in the end, they achieve success, and sometimes even manage countries. His father, Big Small, is a wise and kind-hearted man. He's a real aristocrat. Bart Withord is completely different. He is strict with himself and wants to follow in his father's footsteps. All Nokt realized about himself was that he had an incredible talent for falling asleep in any situation, and apparently this is his real-life path. Nokt was determined that he never wanted to work again. After all, he had already burned down at work once. It was once an ordinary office plankton in Japan, and once I felt a sharp pain in my chest, and when he woke up, he realized that he was in the body of a baby in the house of an aristocrat. In this new world, all people who reach the age of 15 receive a gift from the gods, and when the time comes for him to receive the gift, he will immediately be forced to fight. All his relatives congratulated him on the arrival of such a significant age. Nokt just thought it was the worst birthday ever. Laptop asked his brother if he would even let him eat some birthday cake, but Weishort reminded him that Nokt would fall asleep immediately. Nokt didn't really want to go anywhere, of course. After all, Mare had asked him to come home as soon as possible. Because she had made a great cake for him, Nokt decided to cheat and complained that he was suddenly ill, and it wouldn't be bad to lie down and rest. But the caring Mare immediately offered to drink the medicine. Nokt asked if he might get seasick on the way, but Mare said there was an excellent motion sickness remedy in the right-hand pocket of her jacket. Wiskort said that he had stopped procrastinating, and now that he was finally ready, it was time to go. My brother explained that this was a great chance for Nokt not only to receive his new gift, but also to see the world around him. The father wished his youngest son to enjoy new experiences, but Nokt wasn't as inspired as the others. Once in the capital, Nokt decided that everything was just as he had thought, and there was a lot of activity around. Noticing a local inn, Nokt wanted to find out if there were any hammock beds. Nokt realized that the hotel building had obviously not been repaired for a long time, because it looked very dilapidated. The guy even doubted whether it would be safe for him to be inside. Although this is the capital, where everything should be perfect, it just so happened that his father's estate was constantly being attacked by orcs from the big forest. Therefore, everyone hoped that Nokt would get some useful combat skill from the gods. Nokt, on the other hand, did not want any worries or skills, and it was good for him to just enjoy a carefree life. Nokt arrived at the specified location and introduced himself. Nokt noticed that this strange man looked a lot like his brother, and it was a little scary. Nokt was immediately asked to stand in the center of the magic circle and prepare. Nokt felt that he was standing in some kind of water, and it was not clear what was happening at all. Nokt noticed a female silhouette ahead of him and decided that this must be the goddess. The boy immediately thanked the goddess for giving him life in this world. Nokt admitted that his life is not so simple, but his brother is stronger than any demon. His father is very kind and everyone adores him. Therefore, he is quite happy with the place where he ended up. Nokt started asking for anything but combat skills. He doesn't want to be a warrior. Nokt explained that his brother would still inherit the estate. It's better for him to get some auxiliary skill himself. The goddess didn't respond, and Nokt asked if she could hear him at all. Nokt realized that he was back in the same room he had entered earlier. The guy said that was it, and Nokt had already gotten his skill. Nokt was surprised at how quickly it all went, because he didn't even understand how it was happening. He was asked to go up and reach out to the magic ball, but just do not touch it. The guy asked that Noct was probably the son of an aristocrat, and if this is the case, then he must be weighed down by the weight of other people's hopes. Noct asked him what skill he had picked up in this place. The servant of God showed the title, where it was indicated that the skill is called Increase and Decrease. Noct wasn't sure what that meant, so he asked if the skill could be used in combat. The attendant replied that the name was clear enough and it wasn't a combat skill. Noct understood everything and promised that even so, he would still try to do something useful. The guy apologized for bothering me and said he had to go. The attendant advised you not to get upset. These two skills rarely fall out together, and everything is sure to find a use. Noct replied that he wasn't upset at all and was fine, so he was ready to go his own way. In fact, Noct thought he'd gotten what he wanted. The girl asked what good things had happened to Noct that he looked so happy. Noct explained that he could now rest on his sides for the rest of his life without worrying about anything. It was all thanks to the goddess who granted his request. After all, he had gained useless skills now, although his brother would certainly be angry about it. Noct said that he even bought some souvenirs to appease his brother and father. Noct said that he had bought jewelry for the maids. For my father, a figurine of the capital's tower, and for my brother, a special blindfold that will make him look irresistible if you can persuade him to wear it. Noct said goodbye to the girls and explained that he was now returning to his native estate to continue doing nothing. When the girls heard the name of Nocta Manor, they said that they were very sorry because something had happened, but Noct didn't understand and drove on. Once at home, Noct thought at first that he was imagining it, that the entire estate had been completely destroyed, but there could be no mistake, and it turned out to be true. Noct realized that now he would not be able to lie down in peace, because all his plans had been ruined by someone. Servants leaned into the distance and shouted that Master Noct had finally returned. Noct asked Joseph what had happened to the estate in the first place, and who could have done such a terrible thing. The butler apologized for his appearance, because it really is a real nightmare. Joseph said that the estate was suddenly attacked by orcs. A huge army surged out of the great forest, and everything happened very quickly. Noct wondered where an entire army of orcs could have come from in such a short period of time. He asked where his father and brother were, and what had happened to them. The butler replied sadly, no one had found them yet, but the search is underway and no one loses hope. Joseph said that his brother and father bravely rushed to the defense of the estate, but since then 4 days have passed and nothing is known about them yet. Noct was indignant and said that his brother and father could not have lost the battle so easily. Joseph replied that he didn't want to think anything bad himself, but the attack was really terrible. Noct wondered what would happen there, since the manor had always been a good defense. Joseph again apologized and said that there was no new news about the fate of his brother and father. The butler promised that if it was possible, they would definitely find out. Joseph explained that Noct must now take over the reins of the estate. The butler asked what new skill Noct had acquired, since the fate of his entire family might now depend on it. Noct decided not to explain much and demonstrated how a small stone can become the size of a horse with one easy movement. This is his new skill. Noct explained that it was very convenient and easy for him to do. No one was particularly impressed with such abilities, and Joseph asked how it could help in this situation. Joseph and the other servants began to ask what to do now, because the estate was completely destroyed and there was no place to live. Noct realized that they were indeed right in this case, and his skill is completely useless. Noct immediately regretted his choice and thought that he should have asked for a battle skill after all. Noct thought about it for a while and suggested that we go to the neighboring domain for a while, and considering how many people are left, this is quite possible. Joseph reminded him that the flight of the owner of the estate was an unforgivable act, and the death penalty for that, if Noct decides to do so. Noct turned to his men and explained that he would not blame anyone for their decision. If they want to do what they want, regardless of whether they decide to stay or go to the neighbors, he will not accuse anyone of anything. In the end, Joseph said sadly that it was just the three of them. Noct guessed that his father and brother's pursuit of the monsters would not last long and that they should return soon. After all, he doesn't believe that they could lose to the vile orcs. Noct thought that all this was bad, of course, because he only wanted to start his new carefree life. And without a father and brother, it's almost impossible. Noct remembered what his father had said. My father explained that there would come a time when Noct would realize that this was his land, and then he will have to stand up for her and use any methods. Noct knew that this was the moment. Joseph once again asked them what they were going to do next, but to the old servant's surprise, Noct said he wanted to get some sleep first. Joseph asked how Noct could possibly fall asleep in such a difficult situation. It seemed to Joseph that Noct was just pretending to be asleep and pretending to be real, but after a few minutes, Joseph realized that the young master was indeed sleeping soundly. quickly. After all, he even began to snore and did not react to anything at all. Then Noct began to mutter in his sleep that he would never be able to cope with such problems without his father and brother. Joseph said ruefully that it really did seem to be the end of the Big Small family estate. The servants continued to wait, and Joseph said indignantly that the young master had already been asleep for 12 hours, and it's clear that Noct doesn't fully understand their predicament at all. Joseph suggested that Mare not waste time and go to a neighboring property. Joseph explained that there was nothing left of these properties but the estate. There were no human resources or food supplies left. All the walls are destroyed and monsters can attack at any time. So no one can blame Mare for leaving to save her own life. Mare knew Joseph was right, but she didn't want to leave. Noct finally woke up and wished everyone a good morning. The young master said that a good night's sleep relieves fatigue, and he feels much better now. Noct admitted that he feels like he's been reborn all over again. Joseph asked what the young master was talking about anyway. Since everything was completely ruined, Mare couldn't help but laugh softly, and Joseph reminded her that this wasn't the best time to have fun. Noct said that he was very grateful that they stayed with him and did not leave their native estate. After all, he wants to return the old life to these lands, and he needs help from them, at least until my father returns with my brother. Noct asked if the two of them were willing to be his mainstay in his affairs. Mare happily replied that she was ready to help with the restoration of the land, and Joseph admitted that he was very impressed by the way Mr. Knot talks about his plans. Mare told Joseph that they should be at the young master's side in such a difficult hour. After all, there was no one else left, and it's still a good thing that the mansion is still intact. Therefore, they will have no problems with safe accommodation and cooking. Noct thanked him for the delicious tea. Then he reminded her that Mare had said the well was fine, too, and so they can safely take a bath and wash their clothes, and at least some pressing problems will not bother them. Noct asked if they had absolutely no food left. Joseph and Mare confirmed their concerns, and explained that they themselves had not eaten anything since yesterday. The girl explained that she had collected everything that could be eaten, but it was very small. Noct was disappointed that there wasn't enough food for even one person. It turned out that almost all the food supplies were taken away by the surviving residents of the estate. Mare said that she was on a diet right now, so Joseph and Noct could eat all the food and she would be patient. Joseph claimed that he was only a butler and wouldn't be able to touch the food that belonged to the master. Noct replied that he didn't want to look selfish and eat everything by himself. Therefore, they should divide the food into 3 people, and although it will not be enough, it will be fairer. Then Noct remembered that he could try to increase the food, and his new skill should help him. Mare was delighted and offered to try out a new ability that should increase or decrease items. Noct applied magnification, and there was indeed a little more food. Joseph and Mare were delighted with the result and said it was incredible. Noct was surprised at his own success, but decided it wasn't enough. After all, he wants to feed to the brim of those who believed in him and stayed to help, and in general, in his place should have been a father and brother, wise and brave people, but it turned out quite differently. Noct thought that this world was simply wrong to think that he was a good ruler. Mare screamed and begged Noct to stop increasing the food, because it was already too much. Mare was afraid for the young master and asked him to wake up. The girl explained that Noct overdid it with the size of the food created. Mare had thanked Noct for his incredible ability, and now they would be able to eat their fill. Noct realized that the 3 of them now had to deal with all their problems somehow. The girl pointed into the distance and noticed that the neighboring properties looked very small from this height. Noct wondered if he would be able to create on his own lands exactly the same beautiful possessions in which people would be happy to live, although it is more likely that he will die from processing and repeat his fate in a previous life. After the terrible events, the Big Small domain was inhabited by only 3 people. The land had fallen into disrepair, and Noct could only rely on 2 of his servants. They were faced with a difficult task to survive in difficult conditions. There was a lot of work to do, and for the first time in his new life, the new owner of Noct found it pleasant to sweat from hard work. Noct admitted that after such work, he sleeps like a baby. Joseph joked that if you knew the spirit of the common people, you would know exactly what it was like to be the new patron of the estate. Joseph was outraged that Noct hadn't actually dug up much of anything, and even he, the old butler, did a lot more work. Mare, meanwhile, prepared dinner and suggested that Joseph and Noct put aside their work and rest for a while they ate. Noct complimented the girl on her lunch and noticed that the food was richly decorated with herbs. Mare explained that she prepared the food according to different recipes to add variety and delight the taste. Mare suggested that we try Mortica enamel first. Noct replied that sesame oil perfectly accentuates the bitter taste, and Joseph reminded that Mamortica helps to reduce the level of glucose in the blood. Then Mare suggested that we try the deep deep-fried mamortica without the dough and breadcrumbs. Noct appreciated this method of cooking and said that he liked the way the bones crunched. Joseph explained that such food allows you to recover well after physical exhaustion. Mare suggested refreshing yourself with pickled mamortica after heavy consumption of sesame oil. Noct replied that the food still tasted a little bitter. Joseph grumbled that spicy food was good for the liver. Noct, of course, realized that Joseph didn't like the food very much either, and advised him not to choke. Mare apologized for the fact that her cooking skills were too modest and her taste was too good. Noct replied that there was no need to be upset, because in fact, she didn't have a good choice of food to cook. Noct asked how long the vegetables would last in the field. The girl explained that arugula ripens for about a month, but even after a couple of weeks, it can already be consumed in the form of leaves. Noct realized that he would have to do something about food in the next 2 weeks, and so far they only have a choice of mamortica. Noct admitted that it's only been 2 days, and he can't look at her anymore. He was so full of it. He explained that it tasted sluggish, that it wasn't nutritious enough, and that after everything, he felt hungry and didn't want to do anything, and we urgently need to get food containing iron. He also said that he wouldn't mind something else. Mare promised that she would try to solve the problem of iron content in food. Mare drew her dagger, but Joseph and Noct hurried to stop her and asked her what she was going to do. Mare replied that she just wanted to be useful to the young master, but Joseph said there was enough iron in mamortic to make it up. Joseph asked the young master if he thought Mare's behavior had been strange lately. Noct explained that he hadn't noticed anything unusual and Mare was just trying very hard to be helpful. Noct then said that once they were finished and they had managed to get something to eat, it was time to get some sleep. Joseph reminded the young master that they still had a lot of work to do, but that didn't make any difference, and Noct was almost asleep. While Noct slept, Joseph and Mare just waited for him, and when he got back, Joseph said that they were just sorting out important problems on their property, so Noct could help. Noct asked what hinders a person on his way to success. Joseph explained that first of all, food is needed so that a person can show the most effective result. After all, food is the basis of everything. If you do not eat properly, even the quality of sleep will worsen. Noct read the list of major problems he had compiled. Joseph pointed out that first you need to restore the fence, then restore the food industry, establish trade, and improve the fields. Noct asked for a quill and added that he needed to find food other than mamortica. Joseph was surprised by the addition of such an item, and Noct explained that he gave this problem the highest priority. In the end, Noct suggested that we split up and look for food. Noct asked Joseph to inspect Lawrence's fields. Mare had Sammy's plantation checked out. Joseph remembered that Sammy's fields were well cared for and there was something to be found. Mare agreed that maybe it was a chance to diversify the food. Noct advised me not to waste any time. The Noct decided to take a closer look at their skills capabilities in the meantime. The guy found a jelly slime that was omnivorous and looked calm and weak. Noct noticed that slime had eaten a lot of healthy foods in the field. Then I decided to use slime as a pillow. The slime was comfortable and bouncy, and it felt like a water cushion. Noct smelled a berry smell and decided that slime had eaten strawberries somewhere. In general, it is designed to be a pillow. But all of a sudden, Noct fell into the slime and started coughing up the slime. Noct was indignant and applied a reduction to slime. Noct felt a little repulsed. He decided that it wouldn't work on strong monsters, but in the end, to his surprise, everything went well and Noct was able to reduce even a living creature. Noct applied the reduction on himself and was surprised at the result because he felt like he was in the jungle, and this was just ordinary field grass. Then Noct saw something fast lunge at him. It became clear that this is just an ordinary bird that wants to eat it. Noct was able to trick the bird and realized that the long-tailed kiwi, which is on the verge of extinction. This bird can fly, but it is difficult for it. Noct sensed how soft the bird's plumage was, and it was incomparable. But the bird escaped from his hands and the young master flew down. The only thing that he managed to notice was the wonderful scenery that was visible from above. But then he realized that this was not the time to think about beautiful views, because he would break if he fell. But instead of a heavy blow, Noct felt a pleasant and swaying sensation. After all, he was able to land on a soft spikelet. Noct was glad of the new sensations and decided that this was a good bed. And the world in the form of a tiny man seemed beautiful. Although it was too hot near the ground, it still turned out that it was not so easy to be small. Mare saw the young master and said he looked very nice. Then she asked him what he was doing here like this. Noct explained that he was just testing his new skill. Noct asked what Mare was doing at the moment. The girl explained that because of the broken fence, all the fields were filled with monsters, and so she decided that it was better to unite. Noct can help him a little so that Joseph can't find him, because he'll be grumbling and angry again, and he wants to get some sleep and rest. Mare laughed and promised to comply with the young master's request. Noct also asked the girl to cover the sun for a while and create a shadow for him. After all, for him as a small child, the heat was unbearable. trouble. Mare immediately found a great way to create a shadow and asked how the young master was feeling. Noct said it was much better that way, and the sun didn't bake anymore. At the same time, the guy thought that Mare really is a very strange girl. Joseph suddenly appeared and asked what Mare was doing and who she was talking to. Noct realized that his plan to sleep peacefully had failed miserably. Joseph was indignant at what was happening and asked why the young master was forcing the girl to show her underwear. Noct began to defend himself, explaining that he hadn't asked Mare to do this at all. But Joseph said that Noct's father would not have been happy about it. Mare told Joseph that there was no need to blame the master for everything, as she only wanted to shield him from the scorching sun. But Joseph didn't believe her and asked Mare to cover up quickly. Noct, meanwhile, shouted that he would stop stomping around like that, because he was feeling a real earthquake. Mare was startled and rushed towards the young master, trying to catch him. Noct replied that he was fine and only got a small scratch. Joseph began to apologize and explain that this was unacceptable, since the young master was injured because of him. But Noct said that there was no need to worry and that he was really fine. Mare asked me to show her the wound so she could treat it. The girl used her cell activation ability and immediately healed the wound. Noct was surprised at the prompt treatment and thanked the maid, for he was now as good as new, and there wasn't even a trace of a scratch left. At the same time, Noct noticed that Joseph was still angry with him. Noct asked Mare what skills she had. After all, the girl explained that she can activate cells, and this allows you to regenerate the human body and quickly heal wounds. Noct considered the possible use of such an ability. Then he asked her if her cell regeneration skill could work on vegetables. After all, this could solve the problem with products. Mare tried her cell growth acceleration skill and happily declared that the plants had indeed sprung up a little. Noct realized that not everything was as simple as he would have liked, but he still praised the girl for her efforts. Young Master's Mare isn't going to bed right now, because they still have a lot of things to do. But Noct didn't listen, of course, and decided that he needed to get some sleep. After taking a short nap, he heard a strange noise that prevented him from resting. It turned out to be Mare trying her best to concentrate while shouting loudly. The girl tried her best to improve her cell activation ability and grow the plant as quickly as possible. Looking at her efforts, Noct was once again convinced that she was a very strange girl. Then he decided that maybe she ate something unusual and it affected her behavior. But Mare didn't give up trying and was happy to see each leaf. The girl said, "I try to persuade the plants to grow big and strong so that the young master will not starve." Mare said that she should pay with Noctu's gratitude for what happened 10 years ago. Noct immediately recalled the incident from a long time ago. One of the farmers was outraged that someone dared to rob his field. Sammy demanded that the culprit be caught and locked up in a dungeon, or he would get to him himself. Father Noct asked that the culprit be brought in and punished, but Noct intervened and tried to explain to Sammy that it was unlikely that the girl had entered the field for fun, and she did it just to survive, so you have to forgive her. But Sammy was indignant and asked how he himself should survive after what happened in the opinion of the young master. Noct promised to compensate the irate farmer for the damage, and to do this, he will sell one of the souvenirs that his mother gave him. Noct asked the farmer if he would accept the offer. Sammy calmed down and said that Noct shouldn't make such a sacrifice. Sammy promised that he would sort out his own problems. Noct thanked the farmer for his understanding. My father asked why Noct had done this and defended a strange thief. Noct reminded them that the Big Small family must protect those they consider their subjects, and so this girl was under his protection. My father asked me what Noct would do if this girl did something bad again. Noct explained that he was confident that this would not happen, and from now on, she would be his personal maid. The father was surprised by this decision of his son, but did not contradict his wishes. Noct asked the girl her name. The girl saw that she was not in any danger, and gave her name. Noct immediately explained to Mare that he had an important job for her, and now she would have to steal. Noct said Mare would have to prepare the bed for him. Then he asked her if she could handle it. At that moment, everyone was extremely surprised by the young master's action. After all, he had saved a little girl whose days were practically numbered in this world. Mare said it was her turn to take care of her master. She tried to grow an edible plant as soon as possible and was indignant why it could not be done quickly. Mare was upset because she couldn't do anything at this very moment. When the young master needed her help, she decided that her existence was simply useless if she couldn't do anything to help in such a difficult situation. Noct watched the girl and realized how much she was trying to help him. Noct remembered the words of his father, who had always reminded him to protect his people by all means necessary. Noct immediately began to think about how he could become a worthy heir to his father and be a good ruler for his people. Mare noticed the young master and asked why he was awake. Noct asked her, without explaining anything, to try her skill on the plant again. The girl made another attempt to activate the plant cells, but the result remained unchanged. Noct decided to help her and quietly applied his magnification skill. The plant immediately took a leap in growth, and Noct realized in that moment that God had actually given him the perfect ability for important needs, and now he clearly sees the right way to use his abilities. After all, its ability to increase and decrease can show the full potential of the desired object, and when interacting with other skills, the possibilities of his skill are limitless. In other words, his skill shows the true capabilities of other skills. The maid was delighted with the result. Noct explained to her that he combined his augmentation skill with her cell activations, although initially, he wasn't sure if all of this could work. Noct then asked her not to worry so much and explained that his suffering was not as great as she imagined. Of course, it is clear that his family is missing and they have neither money nor food now. But even now, he's happy just thinking about having such wonderful people as Mare and Joseph around. Noct stated that he fully relies on them and wants to trust them in everything. Mare recalled her first meeting with the young master and promised to be loyal to him forever. Joseph asked why the young master was awake and acting so strangely. Noct explained that he had been busy and now they had resolved the food issue. The next day it was all business as usual, and toward noon Mare called everyone to dinner. This time on the table were fried avocado and arugula without breadcrumbs and dough. There was also toasted asparagus, beans, and pepper, and also a wonderful vegetable soup, which promised to give maximum nutrition. I explained that this meal would bring a wonderful balance. Noct, on the other hand, did not think about the usefulness and admired the taste. Mare was pleased with the result and offered a supplement to everyone. Noct, already full, thought that this was probably too much for just once. Joseph explained to the girl that she was behaving inappropriately at the table since she was reading a book while eating, but Mare said it didn't matter. After all, they have a lot of ingredients, so she can now make no excuses, or rather, he will study. Joseph asked her if the young master was forcing her to do this. Noct replied that he had absolutely nothing to do with it, and instead asked Mare not to overdo it. Mare said that she intends to try harder and better, and then she will achieve better results for the common good. Noct thought that the girl's attitude would be useful. Noct then said that vegetables were fine, but he would like to eat meat already. Mare immediately exclaimed that she would do it very quickly, but Joseph, frightened by the sight of the blade, asked Mare to stop joking like that. Noct decided to start restoring the estate and used an earth shield. In addition to skills, there is also magic in this world. There are 6 elements in total: fire, water, wind, earth, light, and darkness. Noct was gifted with a talent for earth and fire magic. Noct created a fireball and rejoiced at the result. Mare praised the young master for lighting the fire and called him a capable disciple of the fire god. Noct replied that starting a fire in the furnace was the easiest task for him. The water quickly warmed up and Noct thought that it had been about a month and a half and he could finally enjoy a hot bath. The young master thought that it was a real spiritual joy to lie down in warm water. Joseph, on the other hand, continued to grumble as usual. Noct paid no attention and enjoyed the view of the shining water and the endless blue sky. The guy asked what else is needed for complete happiness. Joseph was surprised and asked if there was nothing else needed for the young master. Mare admitted that personally, she would not refuse chamomile or apple flavor, and she really wants to put on a sweet, fruity smell. Joseph said that he would really like to see perfectly without the help of glasses. After all, now his lenses are very fogged up, and he always needs to look for something to wipe them with. Noct asked me to calm down and stop daydreaming about the impossible, because it will only make things worse. But Mare explained that there would be a sale tomorrow. Noct replied that he did not understand what was being said. Joseph explained that to be more precise, the merchant Raphael was coming tomorrow, and he had a good relationship with the young master's father. Mare exclaimed that this is an incredible person from whom you can order anything. But in the past, Noct always missed his visit because he went to sleep in the afternoon. Noct became interested in the merchant's arrival, and then he said he wanted to buy a memory pillow from him. Mare wanted to buy chamomile scents, and Joseph reminded her about eyeglass wipes. Everyone decided that these things would make their lives much more pleasant. Noct asked the merchant Raphael that he was probably tired after a long journey. I suggested that he start with lunch and then, if he wanted to, take a bath. Raphael asked Noct if he was the new owner of the land. Noct introduced himself and explained that in the absence of his father and brother, he was in charge of all the estate's affairs. Raphael greeted the new lord and rightful successor of these lands. Noct was surprised by such measures because he had never never encountered such a thing before. Raphael said that he got along well with his father from a long time ago and did a lot of business together. And even now, many years later, he always uses the advice of Father Noct when trading. Noct could smell Raphael's pleasant peppermint scent, and the merchant apologized for talking too much about himself. Then Raphael suggested that they get down to business quickly and asked if they would like to buy something from his belongings. Noct thought that this guy was incredibly elegant and pleasant to do business with. Raphael explained that they can ask for anything, and he has everything they want for each person. Noct asked me if everything I needed was in one suitcase. It occurred to him that the merchant might not have the pillow he'd been looking for. Joseph wasted no time in asking about the glasses napkins. Merchant Raphael has his assistant perform a drum roll. Then he solemnly took out of his suitcase a beautiful napkin for Joseph's glasses. Mare stated that she wants to get chamomile flavoring. Raphael immediately granted her wish and immediately took out the same chamomile fragrance from the suitcase. Noct asked for a memory pillow and explained that the slime pillow wasn't comfortable at all. Merchant Raphael considered the young master's request. Noct decided that they certainly didn't have one. But suddenly, Raphael again asked his assistant to perform a drum roll. Then he solemnly exclaimed, "He has a suitable pillow for young master." Noct couldn't believe it had actually happened, and he admired the merchant's capabilities. Raphael quickly calculated the cost of the goods and said that he wanted 200 rubles for everything. Noct quickly counted his coins and replied with a disappointed expression that he didn't have the required amount. The merchant Raphael replied that in this case, you need to make a choice, either a pillow or chamomile fragrance and a napkin. Noct overcame his desire and made the difficult choice to buy the things they needed for his subjects. This evening, the young master could not sleep a wink because all he could think about was that beautiful pillow. Noct then decided to visit the merchant in his tent. Raphael said that it was not necessary to do this and you could just call him. Noct explained that it was all an accident and he was just passing by. The young master offered to sell fresh vegetables to the merchant as well as use the beds in the mansion. Noct thought about it and added that this service would only cost 3,000 rubles. Raphael declined the offer and explained that they were already used to such an overnight stay. Noct was disappointed that his ruse had failed. Then he offered to use the bathroom. The young master said that he had only recently created it, and therefore there would be a special offer for Raphael. And you can use the services of a bath for just 3,000 rubles or in exchange for a pillow. Raphael looked visibly sad and asked if Noct really considered his destiny to be in the future. The second point is the creation of a bath. The young master pondered the merchant's words and replied that the creation of the bath was rather the will of heaven. The merchant replied that if that was the case, then he had no intention of going to the manor again. Raphael's assistant asked me to turn out the light and a cigarette, since it was long past bedtime. At parting, the merchant refused the opportunity to take a bath, citing great fatigue. Noct was saddened by his failure and couldn't understand why Raphael was no longer going to visit him at the manor. At the same time, I could still smell the pleasant mint smell coming from the merchant, but then Noct thought that the smell was coming from some monster, and it was clear why Raphael had always been wary. And if he enters the bath, he will be defenseless against a possible threat. Noct scanned the area and saw only a small slime. When Mare and Joseph heard the news, they were upset by the merchant's decision not to visit them again. Noct explained that apparently Raphael decided not to when he saw the monsters in their fields. Moreover, there are no residents with whom you can trade. The young master said that their land is incredibly dangerous. They don't even have a fence. Therefore, no one will come to this place to trade. Noct apologized to Joseph and Mare for setting the wrong priorities and building the tub. After all, it was necessary to do something useful first. Joseph agreed that it would be very bad if Raphael did not visit them again. After all, the merchant is a very important link. And if trade with it stops, then their lands will completely stop developing. Noct realized that if he did, he would never be able to buy the right pillow. The young master said that they would definitely build a good fence so that Raphael could visit them again. Mare asked if they could do it with just the three of them. Noct asked me to trust him and explained that he had a good plan. Joseph applied the ability to increase muscles and easily began to carry huge weights. Noct admired his butler, who turned out to be a true titan. With its help, it was possible to build as much as 10 meters of fence in 1 hour. Noct realized that, unfortunately, they would not have enough time and resources to complete the fence before morning. Although initially this plan seemed perfect, Mare asked if she should help Joseph too. Joseph admitted that after such loads and spilled sweat, a bath for him will be especially pleasant. Noct pondered the butler's words, and Mare did didn't understand why the young master was so interested. Noct then told Joseph that he had the perfect idea. Meanwhile, the merchant Raphael asked Pico's assistant to wake up, as it was time to get ready for the journey. Pico said good morning to his master, and Raphael asked him to collect his drumsticks. The kid collected his chopsticks and promised to get ready quickly. Raphael remembered that Mr. Rutherford had done a lot for him in the old days, and he would be very happy to help him with any problem. But it's hard to look at his ruined land, and it's much worse than he expected. And it is not clear why his youngest son Noct is creating a bath in such a difficult situation. And most likely, for this young guy, the burden of the ruler is too great. And even without fences, this place can hardly be called some kind of possession. Raphael apologized to Pico for bringing him to such a dangerous place and promised not to do it again. When the merchant got out of the tent, he thought that he was still sleeping because it was hard to believe what he saw. Raphael said that it was simply impossible for someone to create such huge walls overnight. The merchant tapped on the wall and realized that it was incredibly strong and would provide excellent protection. Mare informed the dozing Noct that Mr. Raphael had already arrived. The merchant was surprised and asked how it happened and where such a powerful wall came from. Noct explained that he just combined his skill with earth magic, and they were a little lucky to be able to finish it before morning. Pico said admiringly that it was just an incredibly handy skill. But Raphael thought that it was not as simple as it might seem at first glance, and the cost of forces for such work should be enormous. After all, it is impossible to easily do a job of this scale in such a short period of time. Raphael asked why Noct didn't want to postpone such a difficult task until tomorrow, because it was more logical to just rest at night. Noct replied that tomorrow might be too late. Noct thanked Raphael because it was thanks to him that he got his priorities right, and his settlement was really too dangerous. Therefore, I don't want to think that it is impossible to protect it. Merchant Raphael said that Noct really understood his purpose. Then the young master offered to show the merchant something else. Noct asked him to stand with the others and join hands. Noct then applied the magnification ability, and he said that it was Mordecai who served as an elevator. Merchant Raphael admitted that he didn't even expect him to be so surprised. Noct explained to the merchant that he was about to see a large open-air bath on the wall. Raphael was incredibly surprised to see a beautiful bath again. The young master reminded him that Raphael had not had time to take a bath, but now in this place he can feel completely safe and not deny himself pleasure. Noct admitted that he really wants to get that beautiful pillow, and so, on behalf of the others, he asks that Raphael come back to the estate. Raphael replied that every merchant must have an important quality. This quality consists in the fact that the merchant must be able to determine the value. Noct asked what he probably meant by the price of the item, but Raphael explained that anyone can determine the monetary price. But in this case, you need to determine a much more important value. Raphael admitted that he was only thinking about the security of the property, but he is very surprised that the young master is thinking about more than that, and also thinks about how to provide joy to a person even in such difficult conditions. Raphael said that when he looked at the faces of the Noctas served, he immediately understood the young master's true worth. The merchant explained that now he had no desire to break off communication with such a good person. Raphael promised that he would definitely come to visit next time and bring a lot of different goods. Noct says that by the time the merchant arrives, he will have created the safest sleep park, where you can easily stay to your heart's content. Raphael said it was wonderful, but he still wanted to take a great bath first. Noct was glad that he had been able to please the merchant, and now trade should improve. Raphael felt the warm water's pleasant embrace and thanked the young master for the opportunity to rest. Then Noct suggested that everyone should not be shy because they are not in the pool, but this is their home. But Joseph reminded her that she still needed to behave more modestly in the presence of girls and guests. Pico asked Raphael why this young gentleman was so strange to behave so openly. The confused merchant agreed with his little assistant, because indeed the young master does not look like his serious father, and that is why he is much more interesting as a person. And it is very interesting to find out how he, as the new owner of these territories, will equip and present his native home. It had been a full month since Noct had started rebuilding his domain, and thanks to his joint efforts with Mare, he managed to solve the food problem. Noct, using his land magic and skills, was able to rediscover the walls and protect the manor. Therefore, the merchant Raphael promised to continue to trade with him. The young master thought about the next step in the development of his settlement, and his goal was to replenish the human resources that were sorely lacking for the settlement. Mare reported that merchant Raphael was approaching in the distance, and he was in high spirits, and along with it go new migrants migrants for settlement. Noct asked the merchant Raphael for help in this matter. To do this, Noct used his skill to increase the gems and half of the revenue from which he received as compensation. Raphael was happy about the deal, although the young master decided not to abuse the power of his skill. He was immensely happy about such circumstances and declared that now the revival of their estate can be considered full-fledged, and Noct hoped that when things got better, he would finally be able to fully loaf around and sleep as much as he liked. Noct met Raphael and greeted him, then asked how he was doing. The merchant said that he had brought 4 migrants and, as usual, asked Pico's assistant to play a drum roll. Noct was surprised and wondered if the merchant had decided to take the migrants out of his suitcase. But in reality, Raphael took out a special souvenir from the capital and presented it to the young master. More migrants emerged from the wagon, and Noct was surprised to see that they were real beastmen. Raphael explained that there was no need to worry, and these beastmen weren't ex-slaves. Noct replied that in any case, these beastmen were still subject to unequal rights and various condemnations. After all, their eyes are full of sadness, which clearly shows what they had to go through in the past. Noct greeted the new residents of his settlement. Then he asked them their names. The older woman introduced herself as Olivia, and the little girl, very embarrassed, called herself Kuklua. Noct explained that he was the owner of this estate and was glad to meet you. Another migrant said that Noct was too small and young to be a feudal lord. There were 2 migrants, and judging by their conversation, they were relatives. Noct, because of their height, decided that they were children and suggested that they quickly go down, because it was too dangerous to be at a height. The migrants immediately jumped off the wagon, and Noct realized that they were actually dwarves, and despite their small stature, they are already completely grown up. The dwarves explained that they hadn't been adults for very long, and that they were 121 years old this year. The dwarves gave their names to Rog and Gilna. Noct was surprised to see the ground give way beneath them as they jumped down from the wagon. Gilna was outraged and said that they have a completely normal average weight for their age. Joseph immediately reminded the young master not to use such sloppy language in the direction of girls and not to forget about manners. Noct immediately apologized for his tactlessness and promised not to do it again. Gilna explained in turn that it was their weapon that was too heavy and therefore had such an effect on the ground. Merchant Raphael said that in fact, there were quite a lot of people in the capital who wanted to migrate to this estate. But these dwarves' family was involved in the construction of the capital's tower, and they are first-class carpenters who will help with the construction of the estate perfectly. Noct admired the dwarves' abilities, for the Tower of Light was truly outstanding. The young master wondered why such first-rate craftsmen would come to live in his manor. Gilna calmed her noisy brother down and explained that they just wanted to take a look at the world around them, so they decided to leave the capital. Noct still didn't understand the true reason for the dwarves' arrival, but one thing was clear: they did have their own motives, and thanks to their abilities, they will be able to restore the houses in the estate and improve the settlement. The young master confessed that he had seen the capital's tower before, and it was really tall and beautiful. The dwarves said they could build small structures as well, and all their work is a divine act, which they are happy to perform. The young master was surprised by the sight of these small people's huge weapons and realized that they really liked big things. Rog said that the design of the capital's tower was developed by his sister, and then he suggested that we look at the model that was used to build that tower. Noct was surprised by the quality of the design of this model, because it looked perfect. Noct noticed how happy Gilna was and decided that this was a great sign for further cooperation. The young master admitted that he was really impressed when he saw the capital's tower live, because he had never seen such a huge and impressive structure before. Then Noct noticed that Ghislaine's expression changed a little, but he didn't know what caused it. The young master said that he really admired how it was possible to create such a huge tower thanks to such an accurate model. Gilna irritably asked not to talk about it anymore. Noct noticed how quickly the girl got angry with him, and he promised not to touch the subject again. The young master then once again thanked all the new tenants for choosing to continue their lives with him. Noct said that he wants to start by introducing you to the situation and talk about the guarantees that it provides. The young master promised to give each resident a 3-month supply of food, provide housing and work fields, and give out tickets to the open air bath in the amount of 5 grand each. Olivia asked me to clarify what exactly is meant by a supply of food. Noct replied that this was not a problem for him and immediately demonstrated his ability to increase. The young master explained this is how his skill works. However, unfortunately, he has to apologize because he can only provide vegetables from the food so far. Noct noticed the doll's fangs and wondered why it was so suddenly animated. The beastman girl raced forward as Noct tried to figure out what she was up to. Then Noct was surprised at how strong the doll was because it easily tore the vegetables out of the ground. Kuklua asked the young master if he could increase these vegetables. Olivia asked Kuklua to behave more modestly and not do such things things again because it is rude to demand something from the young master. Noct said that it is not necessary to worry and it is absolutely not difficult for him, and then easily increased the desired vegetable. Kuklua was delighted, and Noct was glad that he was able to please the young girl so much. Kuklua happily began to eat the fruit and enjoy the excellent taste, and then called Noct her daddy. Olivia apologized for her daughter and explained that she just really likes vegetables. Noct thought, in turn, that this girl looked very much like a little fox. Olivia admitted that they were really very happy that the owner of the estate was such a good person. Olivia asked how they could repay this kindness. The young master explained that the most important commandment of his land is that only those who really want to work, and there is absolutely no point in doing what you absolutely do not want to do. And if they like vegetables so much, then they can try to grow them for their own pleasure. Little Kuklua exclaimed that she would definitely grow vegetables. Noct thanked the girl for her good intentions and said that he would rely on her in this matter. The dwarf horn asked his sister what they were supposed to do. Gialna immediately replied that she personally would be taking care of her sides every day. Noct was surprised at the desire, for he had not expected such a reaction. The young master confessed that he really expected the dwarves to help him rebuild his domain. Gialna asked what the problem might be. She immediately pointed out that Noct himself had said that only those who really wanted to work should work. Noct thought that it would be completely unprofitable for him if they didn't work for him. Then he shouldn't let them be lazy. Therefore, you need to act more cunningly. Noct said how they could be so dismissive of their incredible talent, and he absolutely can't believe that they absolutely don't want to work. After all, they really need to create something, and they should not give up. But Gialna said Noct should stop just talking and trying to convince them of something. Gialna asked that since he was the owner of these lands, he should be fully responsible for his words. Noct was upset by this attitude, and Kuklua told the dwarves that they should not mock the young master. Gialna also reminded the little girl that children should not interfere in the conversation of adults because it is not polite. Kuklua did not back down, saying that since they consider themselves adults, then in this case, they should work for the common good. Gialna replied that it wasn't a bad attempt at persuasion for a beastman. Kuklua immediately called Gialna lazy, idle, and a pest. The young doll then explained that those who do nothing but take gifts for granted are nothing more than walking corpses and useless creatures. Olivia quickly intervened and explained to the girl that this was too rude to others, but Kuklua replied that she could not afford to tolerate such treatment of the young master, and she was too tired to just hear different excuses from different people every day. After all, nothing happens out of nowhere, and you need to achieve everything yourself. Olivia began to calm her daughter down and asked her to stop saying such things. In the end, her words really helped, and Gialna said that she would work like everyone else. Noct admired the little girl's oratory skills and praised her for such success. Noct thanked the dwarves for agreeing to help and explained that there was something he wanted to ask them right away. Gialna replied that the young master didn't want them to build a house for him. Noct said that wasn't what he meant and asked them to go to his father's office. The young master explained that there was a crack in the wall and it would be a good idea to repair it to prevent further destruction of the wall. Gialna asked if they would really start working even without breakfast. Gialna promised that she would look into the matter. She told her brother that he could go and get some sleep in the meantime. Gialna then asked the young master to leave the office because he would only interfere with her work. Noct recognized his father and decided that these cracks were really bothering him a lot. The young master was immediately flooded with memories and remembered his relatives who were not around. He was glad to know that the master who had built the capital's tower would be the one to renovate his father's study. After all, this house is the only place where his family memories are stored, and you can't let it be destroyed. After taking a short walk, Noct decided to go back to the office and heard a loud noise. He asked if it was too noisy just to fix one crack, but what he saw inside the office shocked him, and Noct wondered how this was even possible. Gialna was leaning against the wall, muttering something about how things had happened differently from what she'd expected. The young master couldn't stand the sight of the destruction and asked what was going on here at all. Gialna calmly replied that she didn't really do anything and that the wall itself just collapsed. His father's office had always been more than just a workplace for Noct, and since childhood, he loved to visit it. My father was always happy when Noct came to visit him in his study. The father suggested that the little son jump on his chair and sit for a while in the owner's place. Noct was delighted and replied that this chair was, as always, the softest and most comfortable in the house. His older brother, Weishart, was always indignant and reminded him that he would be the one to sit in this chair when he grew up. The father told his sons that when they grew up as adults, they should help each other in all matters. As for with Orth, he should treat his brother with respect. My father's office became the place where the three of them spent a lot of time. The memory of it always warmed Noct's soul. Right now, the young master couldn't believe what had happened to his father's office. Jahello tried to explain that it was all an accident and her hand just shook, so she didn't calculate her strength. Raphael, the merchant, came running at the noise and was horrified by what he saw. Raphael said that there were also hunters here, who agreed to join the young master's settlement on the condition that they had a roof over their heads. And if you tried to get these hunters to join you, then you wouldn't have to worry about meat. Noct wondered what it really meant to be a feudal lord. And no matter what kind of person he is in this position, he should never turn away from his people. You should always understand their strengths and weaknesses and make every effort to keep them happy.
Noct wondered where Jahello might have gone so quickly.
He was also curious about the dwarf's actual average weight. After searching the area for a while, Noct was able to spot Jahello and asked if he could sit down next to her. The girl asked if he had come here on purpose to reproach her. Noct explained that everyone was actually wrong, and even he, as the owner of these territories, also does nothing but make mistakes all the time. Noct asked if Jahello's hand was really just shaking. Ghislaine replied that Noct wasn't stupid enough to believe such a stupid excuse. Then the girl admitted that in fact she does not know how to do anything. And everything is so sad. She can't even get where she needs to go with a hammer. The problem is that she can't control her power at all, and the greatest divine achievement is to build something big. And for every dwarf, the ultimate goal in life is to do something outstanding, and that's why she ran away from her home. Jahello explained that in reality, she can only create beautiful layouts, and that's where all her abilities and achievements end. Noct thought that this was an unexpected piece of news, and he didn't even know it. The young master really admired the built layout. Then he asked me what it would take to make the bridge sway a little. After all, it looks incredibly cool. Jahello explained that this layout is made of sand, but it shows everything quite accurately as it should be in reality. Noct does Jahello like the big buildings. After all, this is, as far as we know, the generally accepted values of the dwarven people. And Jahello is different from her fellow tribesmen and enjoys creating small layouts. And it is enough to understand this if you just look at this beautiful sand castle. Jelena agreed that it was really strange dwarves to be different, but it wasn't a bad thing to be different from everyone else. Noct explained that he really wants to create a place where everyone can only do what they like. The young master said that he himself, for example, always wants to sleep for days on end, even if not everyone likes it. Jahello was surprised by the young master's admission. Noct boasted that he could fall asleep in just 3 seconds, and that's what his talent is all about. Jahello replied that this is a very dubious talent, as for a feudal lord, and against this background, even her unusual ability turns out to be much more useful. The girl showed the layout of the house, which was made in the smallest detail. The young master was surprised at how beautiful this model turned out to be, because it even opened windows and doors. Jahello boasted that she was always meticulous about the smallest details. Noct considered the possibility of using non-abilities. Then I decided to surprise the girl and used the item magnification skill. Jahello was extremely surprised when her small model turned into a huge house. Noct himself admired how he managed to use his item augmentation skill so wonderfully. The young master explained to Jahello that now even her layout can become a full-fledged house. The girl was glad that someone finally appreciated her abilities. After all, her family always only scolded her for the pathetic sight in the form of small layouts. The young master explained to Jahello that now she was able to build a real house, and it was almost entirely her fault. Kukula was delighted and said that she would live in this house. Olivia also confirmed that she is thrilled with such a home. Mere interior decoration of the premises looks simply incomparable. Jahello was glad, because it really became a place where they do their favorite thing. Noct, as usual, started looking for a bed in his new home first. Jahello told his brother that it was indeed the right decision to come to these lands. A few days later, young Master Noct decided to diversify his occupation and went hunting. As Noct gave chase, he thought that he had finally caught the rabbit, but at the last moment he failed. Luz and Greg asked what the young master was doing. Noct realized that hunting wasn't his best side and said that he left it up to them. Luz immediately applied the vision enhancement skill and then added the accurate shot skill to it. Greg's goal was achieved, and they were able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Luz replied that everything didn't happen exactly as she wanted, but the main thing was the result. Greg reassured his colleague and said that everything went according to plan. Noct added that this was not what you would expect from real hunters and praised them for their excellent work. Greg then spotted a honey hive and used a fireball to neutralize the aggressive bees. Luz fixed her gaze on the deer, which happened to be right next to her. Noct admired their skill and said that in this case he relies entirely on them. Thanks to Yahello, Noct's domain became much more beautiful and comfortable in an instant, as we have gained a lot of new wonderful buildings. There were also 2 new residents who were experts in the art of hunting. Luz is a skilled elf, and Greg is an experienced adventurer. When they were done hunting, they both boasted of a good catch, thanks to which everyone can eat fresh meat. Noct was glad, for he had been dreaming of eating meat for a month and a half. The sight of vegetables alone made him sick. Luz and Greg said they were going home now to make something delicious and fresh out of the meat. Noct was a little disappointed, for he had followed them out to hunt in the hope that they would immediately cook the meat and eat it. The young master offered to eat in nature, because there is a beautiful view around. Luz agreed with Noct's reasoning and also admired the view. Greg said he would call the other residents to lunch in the meantime. Noct said that Greg had better stay and start a fire, while he went down and called the others. When everyone was gathered, Noct felt happy, because everyone was busy with something interesting and important, and together they were a friendly team. The meat smelled wonderful, and Noct wondered if this was the pinnacle of bliss. Feel the joy of simple things. Mare was already tired of waiting and said that the meat is medium rare, and it can already be tasted. The young master asked for some time and applied his augmentation ability to the meat. The piece of roast meat turned into a huge one, and a deeply moved Joseph confessed that he was ready to follow the young master anywhere. Everyone was delighted with the amount of meat that could be eaten. Joseph said that he had specially cut the biggest piece of meat for his beloved master. Noct gave him a gift for his help and called Joseph the best butler in the world. Noct stared hungrily at the meat and thought that he had finally waited for this moment. But suddenly a hot piece of meat slipped out of Noct's hands, and he had no choice but to run after it. Mare only had time to shout that she didn't need to do this. But Noct was so intent on catching a fried piece of meat that he didn't notice when he fell off the cliff. Noct thought that even if he died at that moment, then he will never regret anything. Then the landing happened, and the young master realized that it was too improbable, because he didn't even feel the pain when he hit the ground. The first thing that occurred to him was that he was probably in another ravine. But then I realized that the reality is completely different, and it's more like some kind of paradise. The huge girl complained that she was a little tickled. Noct is so surprised by the huge girl that he couldn't even figure out who it might actually be. The young master's only thoughts were about the hot roast meat, and because of this, he fell off the cliff. But thanks to a collision with a huge girl, he managed to squeeze out when falling. Noct doesn't understand why this girl is so big, or how she got here. Mare shouted from above, trying to find out if the young master was okay. Then they all saw and shouted that there was a real giant down there. The huge girl noticed the roast meat and exclaimed that it was just what she needed. Noct watched with regret as she ate the meat and realized that it would soon be gone altogether. The giant girl said that the meat is incredibly delicious and she wants more. The young master decided that there was no way he could let her do this. After all, they will all be left without lunch. Noct used his ability and grew to the size of a giant girl. The giant girl was surprised and said that Noct is the same as Bear. Noct, in turn, asked her not to eat any more of their meat. The young master explained that everyone should enjoy the meat, not just her, and each resident should get a proper piece. The giant girl apologized and said that she didn't know it was their meat at all. She admitted that she just really wanted to eat, and the meat was incredibly delicious. The giant girl was immediately upset, and Noct decided to correct the situation. He applied the magnification ability and once again enlarged the meat to a huge size. Everyone was delighted with his action and praised the young master for his incredible ingenuity. Then they all continued their meal together, and everyone had enough to eat. The giant girl asked that it was an incredibly delicious and sweet liquid. Mare explained that this is a special sauce made from fruit, which is used for meat. The giant girl knew that this was her first time eating such delicious food and asked her to add some more sauce. Noct asked her if this was her first time eating meat. So what had she been eating all this time before they met? The giant girl said that she had to eat different things. When fruits, when animals, and sometimes monsters. Noct was surprised that even monsters had it. Merchant Raphael says it's a girl from the giant family. He explained to the young master that their name justified itself. And giants, judging by the stories of witnesses, are very big and brave creatures. Young Master Noct realized that since it was a giant girl, she had been absorbed by the local monsters. That means she unconsciously, but still protected his possession. The giant girl continued to enjoy her meal and constantly asked Noct to increase some of the food. The young master did not refuse, and he himself was happy to watch the satisfied giant girl. As a result, the lunch ended with everyone's joy at the food. Everyone was full and satisfied, but only the young master thought that he was incredibly tired. Mare said Noct looked extremely tired and exhausted. The young master admitted that he really feels sluggish and probably overdid it using his ability. Then Noct announced that it was time to return home and said goodbye to the giant girl Berdine. The giant girl was visibly upset to see the noisy group walking away. Berdine didn't want to be alone again because she was tired of being alone. She told the young master that she wanted to go with them. Noct was surprised by the giantess's desire and asked if she really wanted to live in his domain. The young master decided that it was not in his power to take care of this huge girl. Noct said she shouldn't do that, because her family would be worried about her if she left. But Berdine was indignant and began to shout that she wanted to go with everyone. Noct was afraid of the giant girl's anger and asked her to calm down immediately. The young master explained that he didn't mind her living with them, but that there would be a lot of problems with her size, and maybe he will try to reduce it a little. Noct asked Berdine to relax and not fight back. In the end, everything went perfectly and the giant girl got a normal size. Berdine, once in the settlement, admired the quality of life of local residents. Noct explained that it was all owned by the Big Small family. Berdine was delighted with the new sensations and admitted that being small is very cool because she can afford to enter any house. Noct pondered after bringing the giant girl back to his house after the barbecue. He couldn't figure out if he had done the right thing and what would happen to her family now. Noct also noticed that when he applied his ability to Berdine, there was no such rejection as in the case of slime. And it was probably the fact that the girl herself was not against her reduction. Then he decided that if Berdine suddenly wanted to, then he would just return her to the reverse state and there would be no problems. After that, the young master confessed that he was very tired and would go to bed. Berdine shouted that she wanted a tour of the settlement immediately, but Noct said he wouldn't do it until tomorrow. In the meantime, Mare advised Berdine to take a bath and get rid of the dirt. Olivia added that it would also be nice to change into something fresher. Berdine didn't really understand what they were saying and asked what a bath was. Noct suddenly woke up in the night to feel a pleasant softness in his hand. He thought it was a beautiful pillow, and how he had never noticed it before. But when the young master opened his eyes, he realized that Berdine was lying next to him. Berdine said good morning to the young master as if nothing had happened. Noct was surprised and tried to figure out when this girl had ended up in his bed so unobserved. But Berdine was completely at ease and looked pleased. Mare greeted the young master and said that she had brought him some fresh fruit that she had picked. Noct and his governess didn't know what to say about the whole ridiculous situation. Mare got angry and asked if the young master wouldn't even make excuses for what she had just seen. Berdine was glad when she saw the fresh plums, and before Noct knew it, the girl was dragging him out of the room. Mare's indignant shouts were immediately heard from behind as she tried to remind Berdine of her clothes. Noct asked Berdine where she was taking him so quickly. She reminded him of how he had promised to give her a tour of his estate. On the street, they were met by Olivia and Kuklua, who happily greeted the young master. Noct showed Berdine the vegetable garden where the little doll grows a variety of vegetables. Kuklua immediately praised the huge root vegetable that grew thanks to her efforts. Berdine saw such a vegetable for the first time and asked what kind of tree root it was and why it was so white. Noct explained that they weren't tree roots at all. The young master was surprised that the giants knew absolutely nothing about vegetables. Noct explained that if you eat vegetables in moderation, they are very tasty and healthy. Kuklua confirmed Noct's words and suggested that Berdine try this vegetable herself. Berdine agreed and said that she really liked the sweet taste. She asked what kind of fruit it was. Kuklua replied that it was not a fruit, but a vegetable called daikon. Berdine said that the Kuklua vegetables are very tasty and she is glad that she tried them. The young master praised the little girl and said that this was the reward for her efforts. Kuklua replied that this was exactly what she was hoping for, because she wanted to grow her vegetables with love. The young master asked Berdine if I really liked the daikon so much. After all, she ate it in a matter of minutes. The giant girl admitted that she did not like the vegetable, but rather liked to eat with everyone else. Kuklua was also not far behind, and as she ate the daikon, she said that she was satisfied with its taste. Berdine explained that the real pleasure of eating isn't alone. The young master recalled how hungry the girl was when they first met and how shabby her appearance was. It was also obvious that Berdine didn't know anything about the kitchen. Noct wondered if she had been alone all this time. And he even reminded her that her family would be worried. So it wasn't even worth mentioning, because it must have made her feel sad. Kuklua said that everything happens in life and nothing can be done. Then the young gardener invited the giant girl to try her pumpkin. But a strange sound broke the sweet communication and everyone was sharply alerted. The young master asked what that terrible howl was and if it was really a silver moon. Silver moon is a wolf with blood-red eyes and dazzling silver fur. Such a wolf is an extremely dangerous inhabitant of the Great Forest, although it shouldn't have come so close to Noct's domain under any circumstances. The young master remembered that right now, hunters Luz and Greg were outside the settlement. Kuklua was very frightened and began to cry, and Berdine hurried to comfort her, saying that everything would be fine. Berdine then told the young master that they needed to leave immediately. The young master asked where they were going in such a hurry. Berdine explained that she could clearly smell Greg and Luz, and that they were somewhere nearby. Berdine also said that she was completely sure that someone had attacked them. Indeed, not far away, Greg and Luz were trying to figure out how to get out of the difficult situation they were in. Enraged, Greg said that who would have thought that there would be a silver moon here, and it turns out they were terribly careless. Greg said that we should somehow distract the wolves and try to retreat to young Master Noct's domain. Berdine screamed that they had finally found them and that they were really being attacked by wolves. Noct saw the wolves attacking and tried to help by using his reduction ability on the wolves. But to his surprise, this did not lead to anything and the wolf repelled his magic. Luz and Greg fought back fiercely, but they were outnumbered. Berdine shouted that she was on her way to help. And after a moment, the young master was surprised at how strong Berdine was. The frightened hunters Luz and Greg asked if the young master was all right. He replied that he was fine and they were rushing to help. Berdine happily exclaimed that now it is much easier for her to move than before, when she was huge. Noct replied that this was great news and he was happy for Berdine. The young master asked the giant girl Berdine to have a good time with the vile wolves, so that they would never disturb his domain again. Berdine on Courage exclaimed that in this matter you can rely on her and she will not leave a single wolf without attention. Noct shouted to Berdine that it was time to get this over with. The giant girl said that these vile wolves were always watching her. And now it's time to end it all. Suddenly, a pack of wolves screamed in fear and started running away. The young master said it was unbelievable that the wolves would just run away out of fear. Berdine shouted that she had completed the young master's task and that everything was fine now. Noct praised the girl and said that this was what he expected from his student. Berdine was overjoyed and proud of herself. Luz asked where Silvermoon could have come from in the first place. Greg guessed that it might have been driven off by the orcs. Noct said something might have happened in the woods, and until they figure out the reason, they won't be able to sleep well. Berdine pondered over the young master's words and began to search for a solution to this problem. Noct then stated that it was thanks to Berdine's abilities that everything was fine this time, so he doesn't mind getting some sleep. But Berdine asked the young master not to hurry to sleep. The girl said that she knows where a very tasty fruit grows. Berdine explained that since she had scared Kuklua and the other residents, she would like to treat everyone to this incredible fruit. Noct asked her why she was suddenly thinking of a fruit. Once in the woods, Noct said that Berdine had a wild-looking house. The giant girl explained that the fruits grow in the garden, and now she will bring them. Noct and the others were surprised by the size of the furniture in the house and realized that it would not be very easy for them to settle down here. Although of course there were chairs, even 3 of them. Noct had hinted to the elf that the 3 chairs were there for a reason. Berdine apologized for the wait and said that she had borne fruit. Noct noticed that they looked very much like grapes and asked what they were called. Berdine replied that she did not know any names and simply called either the fruit or the delicious fruit. Buzz admitted that she also sees such berries for the first time. Noct tasted the fruit and said it was slightly sweet. Berdine replied that it was actually much tastier before. Noct decided to test something and applied a reduction on these berries. Berdine exclaimed that they now tasted the same as before. The young master explained that a large fruit has a lower concentration of sweetness, and if they are reduced, the taste will be different. Noct admitted that he had never eaten anything like this before, and as it seems to him, it can be used to brew excellent alcohol. Just in the mansion, there is a suitable equipment. Noct asked Berdine if she would mind experimenting with these berries. Yes, and Kuklua will be happy to try something new. Berdine thanked the young master for being there, because they didn't spend much time together, but she had a lot of fun. The girl explained that those wolves were always watching her, but they never came this close. And even this time, when she came out to them alone, they just ran away. Berdine said that something happened in the forest because she became small and maybe someone was no longer afraid to enter these lands. Therefore, it should stay here and protect these territories. Noct applied the magnification ability and Berdine returned to her former self. She chuckled at how small Noct now seemed to her. But the guy said that it was too big. In exchange for forgiveness, Berdine asked me to take care of all the inhabitants of the estate. Noct thought that since she had made that choice, it must be better this way. He noticed that Berdine was really too upset and said that it shouldn't be like this. Berdine asked what was going on and why they weren't leaving. Noct explained that if she didn't come back with everyone, Kuklua would be very upset. Berdine reminded them that if she was with them, it would be dangerous, and maybe next time, she won't be able to protect them. Noct promised that if there was any danger, he would protect all the settlers himself. After all, it is his duty as the ruler of these lands. Noct asked the giant girl not to worry about anything and offered to go home with everyone. Berdine burst into tears of happiness and thanked Noct for his trust. Berdine shouted that they had forgotten about souvenirs and took a whole bunch of strange berries with her. Noct immediately reduced them to make it easier to carry and everyone was ready to go. Noct suggested naming the fruit, since it doesn't have a name. After all, it is inconvenient when there is no name at all. And since Berdine found it, then she should come up with a name for it. The girl thought for a moment, then exclaimed that she would call him Nadir. Noct praised the good idea of using syllables from his first name, because it is really convenient. Berdine admitted that she is happy with the title and is happy to be together with everyone. Mare and Noct decided to quickly grow a real tree. They combined the 2 abilities cell activation and item augmentation. Mare was happy with the result and said that with Noct's skill, you can do anything you want. The guy said wearily that he didn't want to work anymore and needed to rest. Mare admitted that she genuinely believes they are a perfect match for each other. Noct was embarrassed by this admission and joked that he needed to check compatibility with the others as well. In an agitated voice, Joseph called his laptop and told it that he had very important news. The devoted butler explained that a tax inspector had come to visit the estate. Noct was surprised by this visit because he did not understand how to behave with the tax inspector. Mare said it was likely that the inspector had come to collect the tax money. Noct replied that this was most likely the case, and even his father was always displeased when the tax inspectors visited him. Joseph explained that the landowners should give part of the profits to the kingdom, but now they still sent a tax inspector even though they knew about the devastating orc attack on the manor. Joseph said that it is the duty of the tax inspector to determine the amount of the annual tax, and they do not have the legal right to refuse to pay the prescribed tax established by the state. Noct asked Joseph and Mare not to worry. And then the young master explained that he wasn't going to pay a penny for his rightful land and would try to settle it now. Noct greeted the tax inspector solemnly and asked if the inspector was probably very tired after a long journey. The young master then formally introduced himself and explained that he was currently managing the estate, and so he wants to ask the tax inspector to exempt them from the tax for this year, as they are engaged in rebuilding after the orc attack. The tax inspector asked why the lord of these lands bowed so shamefully to the floor, and does he have absolutely no pride? Noct explained that if it would protect the quiet lives of his people, he was willing to make such sacrifices regardless of his pride. Then the young gentleman noticed the dirty shoes of the tax inspector and offered to fix it immediately. The tax inspector admitted that she had indeed heard about the attack on these lands, and she would like to know more details about this incident. Noct briefly explained the whole situation, as well as how difficult it is for them to engage in land restoration. The tax inspector knew that the residents had done a really great job, but she can't understand something and would like to clarify some points. The tax inspector asked where such huge walls around the estate came from. Noct explained that they were built by all the residents. The girl inspector asked what it means in this case. The recovery is successful. Noct agreed with this comment and added that they are still not ready for export, and now they are engaged in providing for their own needs. Although in the future, he is certainly considering the possibility of supplying unique goods from his lands. Noct suggested that the tax inspector try the wonderful fruit nadir. The strict girl admitted that it was the first time she saw something like this, but at the same time she was interested in the unusual appearance of the mysterious fruit. The tax inspector agreed to try this product and carefully took a bite of the fruit. The tax inspector replied that the taste is very sweet and juicy, as well as this fruit has a wonderful aftertaste, and it seems to her that it relieves fatigue and headaches. The girl once again assumed the image of a strict tax inspector and continued to listen to the young master. Noct explained that they are considering growing such fruits and making sweets, as well as producing their own alcohol. The tax inspector was surprised at the prospect of such production. Then, after some thought, she said that she was willing to take into account the current state of affairs in the manor. This is why I am ready to exempt these lands from paying taxes this year. At parting, the tax inspector said that she wanted to warn the young master. The strict girl explained that Noct should be careful, because it is very dangerous when all important things depend on only one person. Noct thought that this girl had hit the nail on the head and really had good insight. The tax inspector said that a country that relies on the power of one person will sooner or later be destroyed. Mare said that this girl gives the impression of being a scary person. Well, the young master did not agree and called the tax inspector a kind girl. Noct said it was really wrong to rely on his skill alone for everything, and if something happens to him, it will ruin everyone else. And although there are now many more residents of the estate, but if he suddenly disappears, then the inhabitants should be able to cope without his skills. Joseph replied that Noct had grown up too quickly and had become a wise man, and now the young master looks very much like his father. Noct replied that this way he could continue to live a quiet life and sleep for days on end, if he was sure that the others could do well. Noct asked Joseph what he meant by comparing him to his father, but the old butler replied that there was nothing to worry about. After lifting the ban on hunting and starting its own production, we managed to establish a stable flow of food, clothing, and housing in the settlement. Thanks to all this, the number of inhabitants of the lands belonging to young Master Noctu has also increased. Noct enjoyed the result and watched Mare's efforts with pleasure. Everything went on as usual, and the young master found the opportunity to do nothing and sleep for his own pleasure. The only one who was outraged was of course the old butler Joseph. Joseph reproached the young master for always lying on his sides on the bed after dinner. After all, the number of new residents has grown significantly, as the owner of the manor is not setting a very good example to his people. Joseph asked what his father would think of the young master when he got home. Noct explained that he worked hard until lunch, so he wasn't exactly a slacker. Noct said that he worked hard with Mare, and thanks to their combined efforts and their combined abilities, it was possible to develop a new type of sweet seed, and their task is to create the sweetest onions and tomatoes, even without his skill, and at the moment the process is at the stage of pollination. Joseph listened to the young master's excuse and asked him not to lie to him. Noct complained to Olivia that Joseph didn't believe him at all, and all this is very cruel to him. Olivia admitted that it was very painful for her to hear this, and she does not share Joseph's opinion. Little Kuklua hurried to reassure the master and called him a good person. Olivia tried a new variety of grown onions and recognized that they are really very sweet and delicious. Noct was pleased with this assessment and again complained that Joseph could not see the results. Olivia young master for his incredible efforts. She reassured Noct that everything would be fine. In the next moment, Olivia apologized for acting like a doll to the young master and allowed herself to pat the laptop on the head. Noct didn't couldn't discuss his feelings and pulled himself together. Then the young master gets a new kind of tomato. Olivia and Kuklua were surprised by the unusual appearance of a very familiar vegetable. Noct said that if they were suddenly hungry, he had plenty more vegetables. Olivia smiled and said that if the young master suddenly wanted to have lunch, she was ready to solve the problem. Noct watched the beautiful girl with pleasure and replied that he would be happy to have lunch with everyone. Noct asked why they were cooking outside. Olivia explained that cooking under the sun is much more pleasant and convenient. With the help of a fireball, it was quickly possible to start a fire in the oven, and the cooking process was significantly accelerated. The young master was looking forward to eating some home-cooked food because he was really hungry. In the meantime, Noct decided to lie down so as not to disturb the skilled cooks. A lunchtime nap with the sounds of food being prepared seemed like a great idea for Noct. Moreover, it will be convenient to start eating immediately after they wake up. Just as the young master felt a real sense of enjoyment from his lying position, he heard someone running towards him very quickly. Berdine was immediately there and confessed that she smelled Noct. Berdine was followed by the merchant Raphael and his assistant. Raphael suggested that Noct repeat it, but the young master reminded him that it should be their secret. Soon the dwarves appeared, yelling that they were very hungry. Olivia was delighted with the noisy company and made a Napoleon of sweet onions and tomatoes. Everyone was happy with home-cooked food, and a real culinary holiday began. Noct appreciated the new dish and called out Olivia for her culinary talent and ingenuity. Even Joseph admitted that to achieve this taste only with the help of onions and tomatoes, it's just an incredible success. Olivia told the fastidious butler that she was really glad that he liked her dish. Olivia explained that this type of vegetable was invented by a young master, and she only used it in the kitchen. At the same time, these vegetables were grown without using the Nocta skill, and now everyone can safely grow these unique vegetables in their garden. Joseph only now realized that the young master wasn't deceiving him, but was actually trying to do something useful. Joseph said that this new type of tomatoes and onions is very tasty and unusual. The old butler asked for an apology from the young master for the words he said in the morning. Noct looked surprised and said he didn't remember what had happened this morning. Olivia said that she really likes such a noisy and fun environment because people are all together and enjoy ordinary things. Noct noticed with some regret that earlier in his father's reign, there were a lot more people. Olivia asked not to be upset and said that she had been to different places and she had something to compare it with. Due to their frequent travel, Kuklua became very timid, but once they were in this place, everything changed. They were finally able to find a place where they could breathe deeply and feel free. Olivia admitted that she was incredibly happy to be in this place, and all the other residents of the settlement are infinitely grateful to the young master for his efforts and care. The young master in turn thought, in fact, it is he who should thank all the people who are around him. Noct decided that he would pray that his people would always be happy. He will also make every effort to ensure that the terrible story of the destruction of his estate will never be repeated. Suddenly, the hunters appeared and reported a disturbing piece of news. After examining the tracks of the orcs, the young master said that it must have been a reconnaissance mission. After all, judging by the tracks, the orc advance party stopped here and turned around in the opposite direction. The young master realized that this might indicate that his brother and father were unable to survive. He immediately recalled his conversation with Joseph. At that time, he was sure that his father and brother were alive, and Joseph did not insist and convince them otherwise. Noct realized that history was repeating itself and that the orcs were once again approaching his land. The young master thought that he wouldn't be able to avoid the orcs' attack on his manor. And now you need to decide what to do, because he has never faced such a problem alone before. Noct wondered what his father and brother would do in his place. Joseph said that if the orcs came to investigate, it was a sure sign that an attack was coming soon. Mare asked if these orcs could think so well and plan their steps. Huntress Luz said that she found the small footprints left by the orc scouts strange. The girl hunter explained that orcs are divided into several types, and they have a leader who is endowed with special intelligence. Usually, the most unusual type of orc is the general, but above him is the king, and most likely they are dealing with a general who is able to perfectly organize an attack. Berdine said that orcs are really scary creatures, and she had personally seen orcs eat animals. At the same time, they even came with children and bit off a little raw meat. Noct thought that the orcs were real savages who would spare no one. Berdine asked if the orcs had attacked the young master before. This question was answered by the butler and said that the last attack was just terrible. Berdine exclaimed that she was furious and promised to destroy all orcs who dared to approach the young master. Noct hastened to calm the enraged giantess and asked her how she was going to do it. Berdine replied that she was using her power and showed the young master how it would be done. Greg, fearing for Noct, asked Berdine to calm down immediately and not do this. Hunter Greg explained to Berdine that all decisions must be made by young Master Noct. Mare was afraid for Noct and hurried to cure him by activating the cells. The young master said that everyone should decide for themselves what they will do. Will stay in the city or leave the settlement for the sake of salvation. Noct realized that he couldn't give orders like his brother or father, but his men supported the young master and asked what the defense plan was. Mayor said that everyone is waiting for the young master's decision and is ready to support him in any situation. Noct remembered the words of his father, who had instructed him to protect his people. The young master decided that he should protect his land. Noct said he couldn't do anything on his own, and so he asks for help to protect their common home together. Together, we must protect our families. All the residents listened to the young master's request and decided to unite for the same purpose. Berdine came to see Noct, and the young master asked her if she really wanted meat again, since she had only recently eaten. But the girl said that wasn't what she'd come for. Berdine asked the young master to make her big again. The girl explained that in this state, she will be much stronger and will be able to protect the settlement more effectively. Noct said that would be great. Then he asked if Berdine was sure of her decision, and was she also going to protect his estate with the others? Berdine said that this is a very important mission, and the main thing is that everyone stays alive and healthy, and she wants to be a part of it. Therefore, she asks to make it big again, for the sake of the rest of the inhabitants. The young master admired the girl's desire and said that she was very good. Noct then applied the item magnification ability and made Berdine the giant she was before. Noct asked Berdine to take care of the wall's defenses and be careful. Mare asked her to make a big one so that she could fight as well as Berdine, but the young master replied that this was not the best idea. After all, Mare won't be able to control her body properly when she gets big, and this is not a natural state for her. Meanwhile, the giant girl finished all her defensive preparations and wondered if she could protect the young master. Soon, a noise was heard approaching, and the young master said that the orcs were already close. Sure enough, a few minutes later, the first squads of vicious orcs emerged from the forest. The most unpleasant thing was that there was a huge monster in front of the advancing orcs. The merchant Raphael was startled and asked what it could be. Residents of the settlement began to panic at the sight of an incredible beast. There were shouts that the orc general had personally led the charge. The young master at this time remembered his father and brother, which filled him with rage and thirst for revenge. After all, on the huge body of the orc hung the sword of the missing brother and the cloak of his father. Noct realized that the orc king himself was advancing on them. Merchant Raphael said that it was indeed the Orc King, a monster and at the same time a supreme being with intelligence and divine protection, and it turns out that they were wrong and did not correctly assess the degree of threat. After all, no one would have thought that there would be such a monster here. Young Master Noct said that he had actually anticipated this turn of events, and now it was clear to him why his brother and father hadn't returned. Raphael's little assistant quickly counted the incoming orcs, and very soon, she managed to count more than 500 opponents, and the defenders of the settlement were only 28 people. The young master said that it wasn't necessary to fight all the orcs, and all they need to do is kill the king, so that the other orcs will lose their morale, and then they will not continue to attack the city. Noct exclaimed that they would definitely win this time, and they will do it without a single sacrifice, because everyone's life is dear to him. Noct said that so far everything was going well, since the Orc King had come to them on his own. At the same time, the young master warned that perhaps not everything will be as smooth as he wants, but they must all work together according to the plan and delay the Orc King for a while. Next, Noct was very surprised and saddened by the way the Orc King destroyed the defensive fortifications with a single blow. Merchant Raphael exclaimed that the orcs were preparing to advance through the gap in the defenses. Noct shouted that he was now completely relying on Berdine. The giant girl replied that she was ready to do everything in her power. The young master thought that there were indeed a lot of orcs, and it would be very difficult to withstand such an attack. Noct then exclaimed that everything would be alright and that they had a backup plan in place. And in defense, a prepared trap made of sharp stakes will help, so it will be easier to deal with those who come. But the following events upset the young master. Under the skillful guidance of the Orc King, his army found an effective way to get over the trap. Noct realized that the orcs alone were not so dangerous, but now there is someone who can effectively command them. And now orcs resemble real ants, which act smoothly in any situation. Noct decided that even in this situation, he would not leave his home and would rather die than run away. Greg, realizing the complexity of the situation, shouted out what they should do now. Jaelna called out to Noct and tossed him a small bag. The young master didn't understand Jaelna's meaning at first, but the realization came quickly enough, and he decided to do everything in his power. Noct laid out the small mock-ups Jaelna had created and prepared to face the orcs. Joseph didn't understand what was going on and exclaimed why the young master had fallen to his knees in front of the orcs. But at this moment, Noct was already using his item augmentation ability. In the next instant, the mock-up defensive structures became a real barrier to the advancing orcs. Gielna shouted that she could make as many mock-ups as she wanted, and Noct ordered Gielna to continue this work. Mare at that moment called all the victims to her so that she could provide assistance. The girl also called the young master to retreat and move to a safer place. Mare exclaimed that if something happened to the young master, even winning would lose all meaning. Noct agreed with Verna Mare and decided to follow her advice. But then the young master remembered how he had previously hidden from trouble and was protected by young Mare. Noct realized that he couldn't do that anymore, and now it was his turn to be the protector of his people. The young master used his magic on the orcs and shouted that the villagers should not be any more valuable than their master. Mare froze in surprise as Noct charged at the orcs. Noct extended his sword only for the duration of the strike, and thanks to this trick, he was able to keep his balance. But this allowed him to increase the power of the blow incredibly. Merchant Raphael noticed that the young master expended a lot of effort to apply the skill to complex things, but he manages to effectively use the most ordinary sword. With minimal effort, he gets the maximum effect, and it turns out that Noct has mastered his rare skill perfectly. Joseph admired the young master's efforts to protect his home, and the little merchant's assistant was constantly reporting the remaining number of orcs, and at the moment, she could only count 84 monsters. Young Master Noct was delighted with this result and shouted that they would definitely be able to repel the attack. Then Noct realized that he also had to defeat the main monster, the Orc King, and this is a much more difficult task than the usual stupid orcs. Mare screamed in terror, trying to warn the young master of the impending danger. But Noct didn't have time to react to the Orc King's swift attack and missed a heavy blow to the stomach. Seeing this, Berdine shouted that she would definitely help now. The giant girl rushed to the aid of the young master, but the annoying orcs tried to prevent her. Then Berdine could see the Orc King himself approaching her. At the last moment, the giant girl tried to shield herself from the Orc King's attack, but alas, she couldn't resist the incredible power. Young Master Noct was able to use the item augmentation skill with the last of his strength and made his sword huge. In a desperate attempt, Noct tried to hit the Orc King with the tip of his sword. Young Master Noct thought this must be some kind of joke. After all, how is it possible to break a steel sword with just a powerful press? But it did happen, and the Orc King attacked the young master with a wild roar. Noct felt the monster's hideous paws on his body and screamed in pain. Merchant Raphael shouted that the Orc King was bullying the young master. Noct felt that he had lost consciousness due to the pain, and his body was filled with unbearable fatigue. The young master really wanted to just get some sleep and not think about any problems. The young master's fading consciousness wanted to believe that he had done everything that was expected of him. His only regret was that he had never been able to get his father's cloak back. Noct remembered how small he was, sitting next to his father. His father tells him another lesson before going to bed, and this lesson is dedicated to monsters that every man should know about. My father told me about a very rare plant, Cassella, whose pollen can cause hallucinations. And this plant literally eats all living things, both people and animals. But nevertheless, if you pour this plant with water, it will become absolutely harmless. My father then asked me what the orc's greatest weakness was. Little Noct obediently replied that orcs were incredibly afraid of fire. The father praised the child for his excellent memory and good knowledge. And then my father's native voice said that now was the time to wake up. Noct didn't understand what his father wanted him to do, but some unknown force was able to bring him back to reality. Opening his eyes, the young master saw Berdine fiercely confronting the Orc King. An agitated mare shouted that she was very glad that the young man was still alive and was trying to help him. Noct wondered what he was doing right now, and how anyone could sleep in such a terrible place. After collecting his thoughts and exerting all his remaining strength, the young master decided that he could only sleep when all the work was done. In the next moment, Noct created a fireball and prepared to attack. The young master thanked his father and brother for helping him remember an important thing, because now he understood who he really is. Noct released a fireball and simultaneously applied multiple magnification of the item to it. The young master shouted that he was the fire god's pet and a true flame caster. Everyone who was watching was extremely surprised. The orcs felt a wild fear of the huge flames, and the inhabitants of the settlement felt hope, because now they could win over the orcs. The young master continued to increase the size of the flame, and suddenly the Orc King turned around and began to run away fearfully. The excited merchant Raphael shouted that the Orc King was about to run off into the forest, but that wasn't going to happen. The Orc King felt something sharp pierce through his legs and roared in terrible pain. Pleased with herself, Berdine said she was just returning the favor. The Orc King decided to organize another attempt to break the resistance of the people. To do this, he decided to gather all the remaining forces and at the same time cover himself with the rest of the orcs. Joseph said that the Orc King was too smart for a monster to have arranged such a shield for himself. Jaelna called the monster a total bastard for doing that. Young Master Noct continued to enlarge the fireball. The Monster King decided to make fun of Noct and began to show the young master his father's cloak. Noct felt a surge of rage, knowing full well that his father and brother had probably died at the hands of this huge monster. Then the Orc King decided to hit the young master and threw his brother's sword at him. Mare realized the threat coming at Nocta and begged him to lower his hands immediately. But the young master decided that if he gave up now, his entire plan would be completely ruined. But at the last moment, Noct took one hand away from the sharp blade of the sword and was able to hold the fireball with his other hand. Noct realized that it was now his turn to act and hurled the fireball in the direction of the orcs. In the last moment of his life, the Orc King felt the unbearable heat from the fiery flames and couldn't even scream. Residents of the settlement were delighted with what they saw. The Orc King was literally vaporized by the fireball and the threat was no longer there. Young Master Noct felt completely exhausted and very weak, which gave way to his legs. The last thing he saw before falling unconscious was Berdine rushing towards him. Gradually coming to his senses, the young master wondered what was going on and how he had ended up unconscious. Noct gathered his thoughts and realized that the faithful Mare was right next to him. The girl tried as best she could by applying cell activation. Mare wanted to help restore her master's strength and did her best. Mare finally noticed that Noct was awake and was glad. The young master asked him how long he had been asleep. Immediately, the butler, Joseph, appeared and asked what was really wrong with Noct. When the young master found out that he had slept for 3 whole days, he was very surprised because he didn't even realize it. Noct thought that he was a real dream genius now that he had achieved such a record. Joseph explained that while Noct was sleeping, Mare continued to use her cell repair skill the entire time. The faithful maid said that the young master needed to fix his hair, and Noct advised the girl to rest because she spent a lot of effort. But the girl said she was fine, and Noct saw the maid apply self-healing. Mare exclaimed that since she was the young master's maid, the work was just beginning. Noct agreed and said that in that case, Mare owed him lunch for the 3 days he'd missed. But first, Mare needs to get some rest. The maid agreed to rest and said that the painting was only half an hour long. Noct suggested that she lie down in his bed and gain strength. Mare immediately fell asleep under the covers, and the young master thanked the faithful maid for all her efforts. The butler, Joseph, asked where Noct was going now. The young gentleman explained that he wanted to check on the other residents of the settlement. He also needs to find out something important. Kuklua was glad when she saw Noct and said that he was finally awake. The young master replied that he was all right now and that he had fully regained consciousness, and all this thanks to Dr. Kuklua. Kuklua was embarrassed and blushed at the young master's words and replied that she just really wanted Noct to recover faster. Luz said that since Noct was fine, now was the time to get some better meat and have a party. But in the next moment, it felt like an earthquake was happening. But it was only the giant Berdine girl who was rushing towards the young master. Noct was startled and hurried to use his shrinking ability to make Berdine a normal size. The young master apologized to the girl for leaving her in a big uniform for 3 whole days. But Berdine exclaimed in response that she was incredibly hungry during this time and dreamed of delicious meat. Noct hastened to reassure the girl and increased the first stream of sweet onions that came along to appease Berdine's hunger. The giant girl began to chew greedily on the vegetable, and then apologized for being too weak during the battle with the orcs. But the young master replied that Berdine was absolutely wrong. If she hadn't been there at that moment, he would have died at the hands of the Orc King. Noct then asked where Jaelna was now. Then, with Jaelna's help, the young master arranged for the graves of his father and brother to pay their last respects. Noct thanked his fallen relatives for their care and help, and then carefully and lovingly decorated the burial site with the things of his brother and father. Noct mentally apologized to his father for what had happened. After all, he was weak from childhood to help his family earlier and save the settlement from destruction. Noct remembered that he had never seen his father take a vacation since he was a child, and my father also always refused to let my older brother sleep together when he was feeling lonely. The young master decided that he must now do his best for the sake of his family and for the sake of all the inhabitants of his settlement. That was exactly what his father wanted. Noct realized that he had the blood of a man everyone loved and respected, and so he will become the same worthy defender and lord of these lands. Then a real celebration was organized in honor of the flawless victory of the beloved Mr. Noct and the successful restoration of the settlement. Merchant Raphael said that he was very happy that everything ended safely. After all, despite everything, they managed to defeat the strongest orc, and now there is hardly any threat left in this forest. next? The young master replied that it was all thanks to his own efforts, including Raphael's. Merchant Raphael said that since it was now completely safe, they simply had to do what they had planned. Pico's little assistant clinked glasses solemnly, and Raphael suggested opening the store immediately. Noct had not expected such a sudden offer from Merchant Raphael and asked why he had decided to open a shop in his settlement. Merchant Raphael explained that thanks to Noct's efforts, these lands had become overflowing with opportunities for trade, and so it is ready to develop and organize trade in this city. The young master thought that he had already done a good job, but then he realized that it was unlikely that he would get rid of the new worries of his settlement so easily. Therefore, he should try to make his father and brother proud of him. As a result, Noct, surrounded by all the residents of the city, said that now they should capture the history of the appearance of the first store in his possession. Immediately, discussions began on which store to create best. Gilna said that they urgently need a tavern, because alcohol is a panacea for all problems. Gilna began to point out her suggestion. The young master thought that there was some truth to this. Noct remembered how earlier in his unemployed life, he would get drunk, and then collapse on the bed tired and fall asleep sweetly. That feeling of complete serenity was beautiful. Luz disagreed and said that their settlement first needs to build a farm. After all, they can catch rare and delicious animals, and then start breeding them. After all, if they have enough meat, then all the residents will be happy. The young master decided that Luz was saying the right thing, because eating delicious food and getting a good night's sleep also sounds very tempting. Noct wondered what would actually be the best choice for a restful night's sleep. Noct thought that he would very much like to wake up to see a beautiful maidservant, and at the same time get a delicious and healthy breakfast. The solution came up in my head, thanks to a wild imagination. The young master said that they would open a fine inn in their settlement. Joseph was surprised and asked why Noct had made such a strange decision. Immediately, heated arguments broke out, and everyone insisted on their own project for a new business in the city. The little doll unexpectedly stated that every bright desire of a person is necessarily followed by the invisible hand of God. Noct pondered over the young fox's words, and another project idea popped up in his head. Noct thanked Kuklua for the excellent tip, and then he said that the first institution of his city will be the best retail store. This decision came as a surprise to everyone, and there was an awkward pause. Gilna finally said it was too easy, and Huntress Luz asked if it would be useful at all. Gilna reminded them that they could buy everything they needed from Raphael's merchant, or what Noct was going to sell in this shop anyway. Huntress Luz confirmed that they really have nothing to sell, as they even share food with each other. Noct explained that he didn't exactly mean it that way, and that he didn't mean it that way. The young master said that they should start the circulation of gold coins in their domain. Noct explained that, for example, Luz brings his loot to the store and sells it, and then makes a profit, and the store, in turn, will sell to those who need meat. And in this way, a stable economy will be created. And if we put it another way, then these possessions will return to the previous financial system, which was established before the attack of the Orc army. Joseph agreed that it would be good if the old days returned and everything was as it used to be. Noct exclaimed that they would all work together to restore a free market to their city. The young master said that they would trade exclusive goods, and so they will raise the attractiveness of their settlement. In the future, merchants from neighboring lands will gradually come to them, pouring even more gold coins into their economy. And then, if necessary, they will definitely build a good hotel. And in the hotel itself, on the first floor, you can organize a dining room, where food will be prepared from unique products that are not found anywhere else. Noct also said that he wants to organize a fair distribution of profits among all, and all that they have valued so far, they will share equally. The young master explained that they had certainly done a good job in the fields, but now they even have a carpenter, as well as a hunter and cook, and altogether they became real masters of their craft. And if everyone uses their skills together, they will definitely achieve excellent results. And after they earn a lot of money, they will be able to introduce a land tax. Gilna was indignant and asked why they needed a land tax. Noct reminded that this year they were able to avoid paying tax, but next year they will have to pay their bills. Without this tax, they will not be able to live together and thrive further. And so, in order to protect their homes and their lands, they all need to restore a stable economy as soon as possible. Noct noticed the confused looks of his residents and asked if no one wanted to participate. Little Doll asked if they couldn't all eat together now. Noct replied that this was not the case at all, and that they could do it at any convenient time. Gilna's brother had asked her to build a tavern just like they wanted, but Gilna replied that it was unlikely that he would be able to handle this case alone. Noct remembered remembered how Jaelna had run away from her family and how she had been humiliated for her wishes. Huntress Luz also reminded them that they didn't have any money to spend on unnecessary problems right now. The young master thought that it was vital to get a startup capital. Noct turned to Merchant Raphael and said that now was the time for their case. Raphael replied that he had already waited too long to hear it. The young master poured out a mountain of jingling coins. Then he explained to his surprised friends that he had received all this money for a small favor for the Merchant Raphael. Raphael reminded him in a satisfied voice that there were 50 million people here, and that was enough for a lot of things. Young Mr. Noct said that everyone will now receive a gift of 1 million rubles. And now, as it was said initially, everyone has enough money in excess for all the ideas they want to make. Noct also said that if someone suddenly needs something, then everyone can turn to him for help, and he promises to provide full cooperation in any case. Jaelna looked at the money, and in her dreams was already in her own tavern. The young master reminded that every inhabitant of his land came to live with him for one reason or another, and everyone pursues their own goal, and someone may know what they are running from. But all this time, together, they tried to bring today's beautiful day closer, and also all together were able to repel the attack of a horde of vile orcs. And unlike many other people, they all had to go through a lot of difficulties and suffering. Therefore, they are all much stronger now, and each of the residents deserved to get their million. And although this is a lot of money, but everyone really deserves to get it. The little doll screamed that the free market is cool, and Huntress Luz agreed that it was a very lucrative business, as it turned out now. Young Master Noct thanked Raphael for his help and said that normally he would never have been able to cope. Noct was incredibly happy that he was still able to convince his friends of the correctness of his decisions. The young master exclaimed that from today on, he was declaring his domain a free market zone. Young Mr. D. Noct said that it remains only to decide on the place where construction will begin. Jaelna asked to see the map of Noct's domain, which she had compiled in some detail. The map was indeed of excellent quality, and Noct said that now he understood what his domain looked like. Jaelna advised to study well, because it is useful to know the lord of these lands. Noct thought that he was very glad that he was able to visit the capital, and although he is not going to exactly copy the structure of the capital, but as an example, it is useful to know. Noct decided that he should build his own city from scratch. The young lord exclaimed that they would do it all together and put all their love into it. Noct pointed out the location on the map and said it would be a great place to start, but Jaelna replied that it looked rather small. Jaelna asked why Noct had drawn the project too small, like some poor guy. Jaelna was also outraged that all this is located too far from her home. Noct reflected that if the place where the first field had already been built was vacant, then this would be the best option for development. The young lord chose a different location, and Jaelna admitted that it was perfect. But then Noct exclaimed that this place wouldn't do. After all, Noct explained that this place was too far from Koklua's house, and because of that, Olivia would have to travel too far. The young lord began to choose other options for development, but each time Noct became more and more disillusioned with his choice. After all, what seemed convenient now could be a problem in the future. Noct admitted that it is very difficult for him to solve this difficult issue. After much thought, Noct was still hesitant to make the right choice. Suddenly, a strange man appeared and offered his own option for building, and Noct was surprised that this was his very first decision. The young lord asked the stranger who he was, but the man didn't say anything and just left, much to the young lord's surprise. But Pico explained that this is a new resident of the city of Runner, and he is not dangerous at all, although he is a little strange. Pico explained that Runner would be a new employee at Raphael's branch. Pic said that Raphael would open his own store here after all, and he promised to make a good advertisement for the settlement of Nocta. At the same time, Pico became the main one in this store and will serve as a director. Noct was surprised by this distribution and asked Runner if he was sure, since he was much older and more experienced. But Runner said he didn't care. Runner stated that the main ability of a merchant is to sell well. And of course, he has different knowledge, but he has never sold anything yet. The young lord thought it was probably because of Runner's scary expression. Noct asked why Runner had chosen this particular construction site as the best. Runner explained that the main goal of opening a store is to choose a place where a lot of people gather, and he chose the place where local and foreign people most often gather. Runner said that Noct himself had wanted to choose this place first, to which Noct agreed, and Jaelna again called the place too shallow. Noct then said that he wanted to recreate a capital-like city, and that's why he doesn't want to focus only on current plans and needs to think through everything for the future. Runner explained that the capital was also built over the years, and only a few decades later it became what it can be seen now, and so it will be more important for all residents to solve the current problems and concerns, and only then everything else. The young lord agreed with Runner's comments and replied that he had made his choice. Noct thought that Runner was only really scary in appearance, but his words are also full of wisdom and meaning. Noct said that if the development is successful, it will be necessary to be prepared for significant changes in the settlement. Although this is not an easy task, which will take a lot of effort. Runner said that there was no need to complicate things because the laptop has a great skill, which he heard about from Raphael. Runner explained that if you reduce an already completed building, it will be very easy to move it anywhere. Noct realized that this man is absolutely right, and this is a brilliant solution that will easily solve the problem of perestroika. Noct thought it reminded him of an ordinary video game from his previous life. The young lord realized that Runner didn't look very attractive, but he was dependable and rich in good ideas. At the same time, Pico is much less hopeful because of her frivolity, but she is very charming, and this is her main trait, and so together they complement each other perfectly and will make a great team. Noct said that since he can now easily move any building in the city with the help of a scale down, then now it has an ideal option for the first store. The young lord explained that he would simply move the field to the west, and in its place they would build the first store. After all, you cannot completely get rid of the field, as it gives a lot of food. Noct used the reduced skill and presented the field as a block. Then the young lord carefully took the field and moved it to a new location and enlarged it to its previous size. The result was excellent. Noct realized that this object was simple, and he had used very little magic power, and it can do this many times without any consequences. Very soon, the store was built using the layout and zoom skill, and Noct enjoyed looking at his results. Kuklua asked if Noct had already opened his shop. Noct wanted to be the first buyer, and Pico gave the young lord the goods for free as a sign that she was the first buyer. The carrots turned out to be very tasty, and Kuklua admitted that she tried very hard when growing these vegetables. Noct realized that trade would be better now that Raphael had a demand for Kuklua vegetables, and thanks to the established turnover of goods, their settlement will soon be visited by many people, who will be happy to leave their coins in exchange for delicious vegetables. The young lord said that all this is called creating a good economy. Kuklua promised that she would try her best to supply the store and people with enough delicious vegetables. Noct exclaimed that the first Big Small store in the city would be officially opened from now on. Noct said that the first store in their city became very popular, although so far only local residents remain its visitors. Under normal conditions, the breeding method takes at least 10 years, but thanks to Noct's skills and Mare's abilities, they were able to complete a journey that takes dozens of generations in just 7 days. They managed to reproduce many types of products and establish a powerful, stable production. The merchant Raphael said that even in the capital itself, you can't find vegetables that have such a huge sugar content. Raphael promised that he would definitely sell a batch of goods at a very good price, for which Noct thanked him and wished him luck. The young lord suggested that a large influx of new visitors could be expected in the coming days. There should also be merchants who want to buy their unique products. Noct decided that now was the perfect time to do what he had planned. After all, his heart's desire is to create a beautiful hotel. Ghislaine asked if Noct had been trying all this time just for the sake of the inn. Noct explained that if they had built the inn in the first place, the butler Joseph would have been very grumpy and indignant, but now he just can't be against it, and the hotel will be very useful. Jaelna explained that what she really meant was that it would be very difficult to move forward in the free market. Noct reminded her that he would support Ghislaine in all her affairs. The young lord then said that he had something to say to Jaelna. Noct explained that he wanted to ask Jaelna to help her build a beautiful building. Jaelna reminded her that she was a dwarf, and dwarves build houses, not boxes. But then Jaelna said that she was an unusual representative of her people, and if she wanted to, she could create anything. Jaelna promised that she would also make furniture, because she is definitely the best at this. Noct replied that he knew very well what Jaelna was capable of, and suggested that he start an important business. The young lord said that the first thing to do was to decide who would run this place, otherwise it would be very tiring for him personally to do the calculations. After all, he needs more time to rest and sleep after lunch. Jaelna agreed that Noct in this role would be the worst option, and it is better to appoint Joseph or Mare. Noct greeted Mare and asked where Joseph was now. The maid explained that Joseph was watering the fields. Noct said that unfortunately Mare didn't have enough training to do complex calculations on her own, and that's why it's best to discuss it with Joseph. The young master asked the maid that perhaps there were people in his land who met all the requirements and were currently free. Mare replied that she had just prepared such a list where she indicated suitable candidates. Noct became interested and began to study the important information. Quite soon, Noct decided to visit Olivia, who was delighted with his unexpected appearance. Olivia admitted that she was happy to see Noct at her house and asked him to wait a minute while she prepared the treats. Olivia explained that if Noct had arrived a little earlier, he might have joined them for lunch. Although even this does not prevent a little more snack, Kuklua said that she would not mind. Olivia suggested that we try a cake with rare Nankali cheese and nadir fruit sauce. After taking a small bite of the beautiful cake, Noct felt that there was a certain firm sweetness in it, as well as refreshing notes of fruit. And such food is a pleasure not only for the stomach, but also for the soul. Olivia asked if the young lord really wanted her to be the manager of the new inn. Noct replied that this was the best possible solution, but only if it's not too burdensome for Olivia herself. Kuklua stated that she would take care of her mom and she would be fine. Noct asked her what she'd been doing before she'd arrived. Olivia replied that she was just taking different medications. The girl explained that there is currently no doctor on their land, and if something went wrong, they wouldn't be able to rely on Mayor's abilities alone. Therefore, it is better to ensure yourself with medication. Olivia admitted that she thought about opening a pharmacy when she had everything she needed to do it. Noct immediately imagined the beautiful Olivia as the local doctor. The young master's blood pressure increased due to the rush of wild imaginings, and he felt that everyone noticed it. Olivia said that if the young master needed someone suitable for the position of hotel manager, then she can find a suitable candidate and introduce you to someone. It wasn't long before Noct met the girls Phyllis and Hannah, and also with their father of the Levy family, who looked like a very experienced man. Olivia explained that the Levy family used to run the hotel successfully, and that they were the most knowledgeable people in the business. Levy admitted that it was actually quite a long time ago, and even before Hannah was born. The young lord said that they were an excellent candidate and that they were suitable to take over the first inn on his land. Jaelna advised not to react so strongly to the problem of goodies. After all, in fact, the only real work that all employees of the hotel will perform is the work of the customer reception and cleaning the premises. Levy and Noct didn't agree with little Jaelna's comments, and we tried to explain that a good hotel is the face of every self-respecting city. Jaelna decided not to give up and asked who even decided that a certain hotel was becoming the face of someone's land. Noct explained that all is well, all ends well, work, drinking, and traveling in all these events. People are good at remembering the last thing that happened to them, and it is the hotel that marks the end of a long day for every traveler. Therefore, the quality of a hotel is an assessment of the city where it is located. Noct realized that Mr. Levi was exactly the right person to run the hotel well. Levy had a lot of experience and clearly understood how to immediately accept and organize the operation of the hotel. Then Levy said that you need to understand what makes a hotel really good. The most important thing in the work of the hotel is the service from the heart. Therefore, each traveler will definitely return to the same hotel next time. And the most important rooms in the hotel are the bedroom and a place to eat. This is exactly what the young master and Levy agreed on. Levy and Noct were surprised that their wishes and thoughts were exactly the same. But still, Noct insisted on a comfortable bedroom first, and Levy said that the most important thing was a great dining room and that this should be the priority of the hotel. A heated argument broke out, where no one wanted to give in and put up with the opponent's opinion. The young master finally decided that Levy was a bit of a crazy person, but nevertheless, it was recommended by Olivia herself, and even in this case, you cannot upset her. Although you cannot leave everything as it is at the moment, and you need to prove yourself completely right. The young lord was determined to show Levy who had the real justice on his side when it came to improving the hotel. Noct and Levy decided to organize a contest and find out which of the two of them would be right. Joseph said they were up to something very strange again. Levy asked the young master what they were actually going to do during the competition. Noct explained that Jaelna would make special models, which she would then enhance with her skill. This way they can create their dream hotel in less than 1 hour. Noct said that on this piece of paper, he will describe in detail what his ideal hotel should look like. Levy replied that it would be a lot of fun and he was ready to compete. The young lord exclaimed that it was necessary to find out with the help of people whose hotel would actually be better in the world. An hour later, Noct presented his version of the hotel and offered to evaluate his idea. The young master explained that the layout was exactly what he wanted it to be. Also, everything is exactly according to his plan, including all the rooms except the reception area. Noct demonstrated a place to relax, which in his opinion is ideal for a restful sleep. Levy noticed that everything was too monotonous and it wasn't good. Levy suggested making changes and explained why they shouldn't use multi-layer mattresses. After all, if the mattress has shock-absorbing properties, then sleeping on it will be much more comfortable. The young lord replied that people do tend to think that the most important thing in bed is the mattress, but in fact this is a mistake. Mattresses wear out too quickly and lose their original properties, and so springs that distribute weight evenly are more important for a good night's sleep. Knox said that these beds have 1500 springs and are therefore very comfortable and strong. Then it was Levy's turn, and he offered to evaluate his hotel option. Levy explained that the interior is half bedroom and half dining room. Noct thought it was ridiculous, considering the kitchen, where 2/3 of the total area of the room was used for food, and it doesn't look like a hotel anymore. Levy replied that when a person wants to rest, they think they just need to sleep, but in reality, this is not the case at all. And you need to look at all this from a slightly different angle. After all, it is very important for clients to have pleasant memories that they get from good drinks, food, and enough fun at the end of a difficult day. And only then do they have a desire to rest and just sleep. This is exactly what a fair distribution of the hotel client's wishes is all about. Levy said that in business, some people win and others necessarily lose, and the winner gets everything he wants. Jaelna said that she had made her latest model. Noct asked in surprise if she had decided to take part in the competition as well. The little girl said that it doesn't matter how good the beds are in the hotel, if suddenly the person did not enter the hotel and did not want to stay there for the night. And the most important thing is that the hotel already looks like a beautiful castle that attracts visitors. The young lord thought that Jaelna's project looked very cool. Jaelna said that Noct would definitely sleep well and feel refreshed in such a hotel, but the young lord replied that he honestly doubted he would be able to sleep well there. After all, he will rather get tired faster while walking around such a huge room. Ghislaine was outraged that Noct had so immediately reduced back her hotel option. The young lord stated that they now understood who really had what ideas. As a result, Noct proposed to declare a draw and end the contest. But Levy and Jaelna offered to find out who was the winner, and the winner will be the one in whose hotel the most residents will stay. And then the competition for the best hotels on the territory of Big Small can be considered a success. By evening, Mayor reported that 12 people out of the 43 residents of the city had checked into the young master's hotel, and 14 people have come to Mr. Levy's hotel to rest. And so far the competition is quite equal. Noct was thinking that there was nothing cool about the competitors in, and he couldn't just lose to Levy. In the end, the young lord offered to visit the competitor and see how he was doing. Noct was surprised to see that the competitor's hotel was very lively and full of fun. The young lord was indignant because according to all the rules, it is forbidden to eat for 3 hours before going to bed, and how in general the locals could approve of such late meals. Noct said it was more like a cafe or restaurant, but definitely not a hotel. The young master felt that all this was absolutely unacceptable, and he asked the cook for more food. After a hearty meal, Noct still recovered to rest, as his eyes were literally closing from fatigue. Joseph explained that it was because Noct had eaten too much food. The young master replied that he had only eaten 1 plate, but Joseph said there were actually 3 plates. Mayor was startled and assumed that there might be poison in the food, but the young lord replied that this was not the case at all, and that the food was in perfect order. And in fact, it is the food that gently affects his stomach. Some foods are good for digestion, and some foods are best consumed before bedtime, and everything on Levy's menu is calculated and thought out, even in terms of seasoning. Mr. Levy said earlier that there are winners and losers in business, and he really thought it through to the smallest detail. Young Lord Noct said that Mr. Levy had shown his ideal hotel not only in words, but also in real actions, and that's why Levy is a very amazing person. Noct then thought for a moment and admitted that he had completely lost the competition, and Mr. Tutu's Levy's Inn is the perfect place to stay. Berdine then stated that she wanted to talk and suggested that the young master sleep together. Noct thanked Mr. Levy for the excellent food and asked if he had any spare rooms. Mr. Levy replied that there would certainly be room for Noct, and said that he would show him the room himself. Levy claimed that the mattress on the bed contains 1500 springs. The owner of the hotel explained that the first floor is his dining room, and the second and third floors are provided for recreation, and all this together is a real paradise for receiving guests without a single drawback. Mr. Levy said that he put these beds in every room. Noct asked how Levy managed to win the contest. Levy admitted that when he looks at the young master, Noct reminds him of himself, and without thinking about the losses and benefits, he only sought to take care of the quality rest of travelers. But once, because of this, he created too many problems for the people he really had to protect. After all, he was always very stupid to follow only his dream, and always up to this point, his dream was unattainable and spent all his strength. Berdine exclaimed that it was long past bedtime, but Mr. Levy said to be much quieter because the young master is already asleep, and his face looks like he's experienced true pleasure. The young master enjoyed taking a bath bath and thinking about his true vocation. Knox said that a private large outdoor tub is just a beautiful invention. Mare's maid offered to try a new juice that she had come up with. The young lord was slightly embarrassed by the attention and replied that he could have a drink himself. Mare said that in that case, she would be willing to treat her lord to a relaxing massage. Knox was happy at this moment and admitted that the silence around him made it feel like time had stopped altogether, and being away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life is just wonderful. The young lord said that everyone needs to feel such bliss, and every person deserves to spend time enjoying solitude. Mare reminded him that Knox wasn't alone, and that she was right next to him. But the young lord replied that Mare was like the air that filled his lungs with freedom. Then the young lord noticed that someone was watching him, and in the next moment, I realized that it was the giant girl Berdine, who shouted that she also wanted to take a dip in the bath. Knox remembered the stern words of Joseph, who had told him not to let girls just throw off their clothes for no reason. The young lord realized that Joseph would be angry and indignant again. Knox decided not to let Berdine get any closer. The young lord then asked what had brought Berdine here, and if she was hungry again? But Berdine was already at his side, and Knox realized that he was wrong again. Then the young lord decided to play with the giant girl and threw her a tray to catch it. Berdine did her best, and Knox complimented her on her agility. Knox asked why Berdine was upset and didn't want to play. Anyway, she's acting weird. Berdine was a little embarrassed to have Mare's maid next to them, but then she explained that she really wants to work because she is very bored. The young lord thought it was stupid. Then he reminded her that Berdine was already working as a hunter. After all, she loves meat very much and she is very good at getting it. The giant girl replied that this was not enough for her and she wanted to do something else. The young lord said that Berdine was a very strange girl if she really wanted to work harder. The giant girl explained that she just wanted to be very useful to her master and the settlement as a whole. Berdine asked if Knox had a job that would suit her perfectly. The resourceful Mare came to the rescue and offered her giant to try on a maid's outfit. Berdine admitted that it is very difficult for her to move in these clothes, but Mare explained to Berdine that fashion and work are incompatible things and you need to be much more patient with the inconvenience. Berdine wondered if there were any clothes for giants at all, and Mare told the young master that one maid was more than enough for him. Knox explained that children usually like to imitate everything they see, and so Mare should let Berdine try out that role. The giant girl was indignant and said that she was not a child at all. Knox replied that of course he understood everything and there was no need to be so offended. Berdine said that she would definitely give the young master a massage, as Mare did, but Mare was indignant and replied that she would not allow such a thing because only she was a real maid. Mare then began teaching her skills as a housekeeper to the giant girl. She explained that first you need to master the basic skills of this profession, and usually, for Mr. Knox's restful sleep, calm background music is needed. Mare said Knox should feel like he's sleeping in a forest with crystal clear air. Berdine replied that she understood everything and would do it properly. But the strange, irritating sounds kept the young lord awake. Knox was indignant and asked them to stop the stupid mess they were making around his bed. Mare then explained to Berdine that she needed to bring water from the well to water the garden well. The giant girl promised to quickly bring water, but the way she gave birth to a vegetable garden was just awful. Mare realized that the giant girl had just washed away a lot of tender plants when she roughly threw out the water. The young lord ended up telling the giant girl that she couldn't do such a delicate job. Then the incredible thing happened. The plant tried to attack people. Knox said that Greg's mandrake thinks it's been attacked and is getting very angry. Berdine asked Knox to be careful and rushed to help. The giant girl grabbed the evil plant and said that she would not allow her master to be harmed. The plant immediately calmed down and Berdine asked if it understood her words. Greg immediately appeared and apologized for what had happened. Knox replied that Greg should not be allowed to make such shoots of the plant. At this point, Berdine was very upset, as her skirt was torn while running. The giant girl said she couldn't work like this. The young lord understood what needed to be done and said that he had found a suitable job for Berdine. Knox offered the giant girl to become his bodyguard because this is what she does best. Knox explained that it was a profession that required protecting the good guys from the bad guys and keeping order and peace. Therefore, to put it simply, Berdine will become a reliable defender for him, if of course she agrees to such an offer. Berdine happily exclaimed that she was willing to become a bodyguard for the young master. Knox warned the giant girl that she should not allow herself stupid behavior, because the bodyguard should be a responsible and serious person. Mare confirmed that working as a security guard is admirable and serves the common good. Berdine replied that she would be happy to do something useful. Mare, meanwhile, cleaned up the scratches on the giant girl's hands with her cell repair ability. Knox asked if Berdine was happy with her new role. After all, she already has to go to the mountains for meat, and the new job will take even more time. Berdine replied that she needed a job where she could spend more time with the young master. Knox was embarrassed by the giant girl's revelations and asked Mare to take care of the rest. Noct himself was once again convinced that Berdine was behaving like an innocent child. Mare asked where the young master was going now. Noct explained that he was just going back to his bed to get a good night's sleep. Young Lord Noct thought that perhaps Berdine should learn some common sense instead of doing her job. After all, she is still a real child at heart, although it is not really known whether she is a child, because she is a giant, and you can never tell by her behavior that she is wary or agitated about something. Suddenly, an excited Kuklua appeared and hugged Noct. The young master asked what had happened to her and why she was acting so strangely. The little girl complained that she had encountered some pervert. Noct was horrified by this news and wanted to find out immediately. The young lord immediately recalled the strange behavior of butler Joseph, who had once offered him a moisturizer. The thought horrified Noct, but at the moment he couldn't think of anyone else. And if that's the case, it's unforgivable behavior. Kuklu explained that someone was watching her and that he was definitely a scoundrel. The young lord shouted that Joseph had already overstepped the bounds of propriety. But surprisingly, it wasn't Joseph who was in the bushes, just Levy's innkeeper's little daughter, Hannah. Noct asked her what she was doing here and why she was hiding from everyone. Little Hannah confessed that she just wanted to make friends with the doll and therefore went for her. The young lord was glad that it had really happened and that Joseph had nothing to do with it. Noct said it was good that Hannah wanted to be friends. Hannah said that she didn't get to talk to Kuklua because she ran away very quickly. Noct explained that there was nothing wrong with that and that Kuklua was just a little scared. The young lord called out to the little fox girl and was surprised at how fast she could move. Noct thought that Kuklua was actually a very shy child, and it's time for her to get used to other people because there are more and more of them every day. Noct explained that Hannah really wanted to play together, so she tried to talk. Kuklua said that she would try to socialize, and Noct suggested that we all play something special together. Kuklu exclaimed that she was ready to play interesting games. The young lord decided that now was the time to try something new. Noct asked the girls to stand by and relax. Noct tried the reduction on the girls, and I was surprised at the result. On Kuklua, his ability worked well. However, there was a repulsive force on Hannah's side. Noct asked Hannah not to worry and not to resist his power. The next attempt was successful and both girls became much smaller. Kuklua was upset that she was too small, and Noct promised to come back, but only later. Noct apologized for scaring the girls a little and showed them the plum tree. Hannah told her new friend that the plum was very sweet and delicious, and then suggested that she try it out. Kuklua replied that the young master's skills were amazing. Kuklua explained to Hannah that Noct is a very cool person, and Hannah agreed. Noct suggested starting the game and explained that there are a lot of interesting things around if you look at the world with different eyes. Noct realized that what these two girls had in common was that they were children, although they have very different abilities. But at the same time, everything is not at all important, and the main thing is that they have fun together. After playing with the children, Noct went home to get some sleep, but when Noct found Berdine sleeping in the bed, he thought it was another child. In the morning, the merchant Raphael visited Noct. Joseph said that the young master had worked hard yesterday and was tired, but he gets the impression that Noct is even more of an old man than he is. Noct apologized for his appearance and asked what business had brought Raphael so early. The merchant explained that he had found a useful person who could use magic. Noct was overjoyed at the news, remembering that even in this world, wizards are highly valued. They are very much loved by people for their incredible abilities. Wizards receive the blessing of their bloodline or acquire the wisdom to handle magic. They absorb the knowledge of the Book of Sorcery and are trained at the Magic Academy to earn the trust of their mentor. Noct knew that he was a descendant of a noble family and that the wizard would be very useful to him. Noct decided to greet the new man immediately and dressed quickly. But he was met by three new people at once: Cedo, Juno, and Lion. They explained that they used to be part of the Royal Magic Army. Noct realized that these people must be very experienced and skilled wizards to hold such high positions. Cedo said that now a lot has changed in their lives, so they are looking for a new job. Noct replied that he would be happy to hire new people. Lion was reminded that they were an elite unit, but still willing to work in this settlement for a while. Noct noticed that Lion was very agitated and trembling, and therefore needed to calm her down. Noct asked what magic they used in their work. Lion began to tell her that they were going on an expedition to set up a base of operations in a certain city. Cedo asked me to stop saying things that I didn't need to say. Lionette and the other witches began to argue and denounce the name of their party, but then Lionette saw Joseph and was very confused. Young Lord Noct was delighted to have representatives of the former kingdom's magical army on his territory. After all, their abilities could help him in his work. The only thing that bothered him was that Lionett had reacted very strangely to Joseph's butler. The young lord asked what exactly their squad specialized in the magical army during their service. Lionett kept thinking that this was a real pervert standing in front of her, but she still claimed that they were a group of magical cultivators. Juno said it wasn't something to be very proud of. Sito replied that it couldn't be helped, but they were really just digging in the ground. Noct was surprised by the girls' mixed reactions and decided that they were very worried about it. Merchant Raphael explained that this group was called Mudbloods, and that was what the Earth Mages were called, and most likely, they wanted to keep this fact a secret so as not to confuse anyone with their capabilities. The young lord asked the sorceresses that they understood that they were digging in the ground and sand like ordinary children. Sito replied that this was not the case at all, and that Noct had misunderstood everything. Then young Lord Noct said that it was actually a good thing, and that they were exactly what he needed. The bewildered sorceresses could not understand what the strange lord of these lands really meant. Noct noticed their confusion and explained that the motto of his land is live what you love and do what you like. The young lord said that with their skills and experience, they would be able to do a lot of good for the people of the city. Noct asked if their team could help with the construction and maintenance of a road on their property. Sito thought about it and asked if they shouldn't start building the wall first. The young lord wondered why they were so immediately interested in the city wall. Lionett explained that she had already examined all the city walls before going inside, and in her opinion, the walls were in extremely poor condition. Sito confirmed that the city's defense is at a very low level, and if there is another attack on the city, it is unlikely to be possible to fight it off, since the walls can collapse at any time. Juno also said that the walls are more like a piece of paper, which will not help in the event of a brutal war. Lion said that she was not interested in who exactly was involved in the construction of these walls, but this is an extremely unsuccessful project. Noct did not keep the secret and replied that the walls were built by him personally. Unexpectedly, a group of sorceresses immediately changed their minds, and they started saying that it was just a joke and the walls were still at a fairly normal level. Young Lord Noct of the sorceress girls for their honest assessment and professional opinion, and he will be very happy if they work for the benefit of his settlement, because their experience is invaluable. Sito burst into tears of happiness as she confessed that she had never heard of such kind words about her work before. Juno ordered her friend to stop crying immediately, because you can't show your tears in public. Sito was afraid of her friend's anger and explained that she was crying only because of the pollen in the air that got into her eyes. Noct realized in that moment that these girls must have suffered too much before. Young Lord Noct said that in that case, he wanted to ask their party to build a new city wall. Lionett explained that this is a very big job on the defense of the territory, and is Noct really ready to entrust such a responsible job to the first people he meets? The young lord replied that he was very good at observing and understanding people, even those with whom he had only known a short time. Lion hadn't expected such words and couldn't contain her emotions. Noct noticed that the girl took his words very seriously, as evidenced by her sincere tears, and it was probably not easy for them to leave their previous organization and come to the border of the country. Noct remembered a similar experience in his previous life, and so the result is more important than any effort, and people who delve into the essence of the problem are valued more than the results. Lionett promised that her team would perform the task in the best possible way. After all, former members of the elite Royal Magic Army will definitely be able to build a perfect wall that no one can ever pass through. Noct thought about creating a new wall and decided that he, too, could do something useful. The young lord informed Greg about the upcoming construction. Greg was very happy that they were finally going to have watch walls. Greg remembered how during the last orc attack, he had allowed Berdine to fight them all the time, and he had been denied the opportunity to participate in the battle. Greg felt bad for always relying on girls. Noct calmed Greg down and told him that he shouldn't worry so much about it. Noct explained that Berdine does not know the value of things and can easily destroy any enemies with extreme cruelty, so it's a common thing for her, so Greg doesn't have to worry about her. The young lord said that he was going to borrow the wisdom of an elite group of wizards and use them to create walls for the watch. Lion replied that they would do whatever the lord of these lands told them to do, but Juno reminded her that there are too few of them to do this difficult job effectively. Sito suggested that we split it up into 6-hour shifts. Greg said that there was no need to worry about it and they had free hands. Greg showed off his live plants and explained that they can help a lot. Young Lord Noct was surprised to see a crowd of mandrakes, and if it was Berdine right now, she would definitely fight them. Lion poked one of the plants with her staff, and Greg shouted why she did it. Because he grows them specially. The girl replied that the plants look very creepy, and she is really sorry, but they are disgusting. Greg asked not to offend his plants, because he considers them them his friends. Greg got upset and started burying the dead plant, and the sorceresses were surprised by his reaction because they had never seen such a thing anywhere else. Noct was also surprised because he couldn't have imagined that Greg would become a real tamer of plant monsters. The young lord asked everyone to forget about it and become friends. Then, as a sign of reconciliation, everyone began to drink tea. Noct asked if Greg had really been in the military before. Joseph replied that it was true, and he even remembered little Noct fighting with his brother as a child. As a result, Lion and Greg were able to draw a plan of the defensive structures, and the girl said that now she has ideas how to do everything in the best way. Lionette explained that the first thing to do was to build a double gate where they could set up a trap for the enemies. Juno suggested putting sharp spikes on the walls and digging ditches. After all, then they will be able to attack the captured enemy unilaterally. Sito suggested building a suspension bridge with water under it, so that if something happens, you can throw enemies down. Noct wondered at their plans and wondered if they really had served in the army. Greg said they didn't understand anything and their suggestions weren't very good. Greg explained that mandrakes sink quickly, and therefore it will be difficult to use them when digging a ditch with water. Noct was once again convinced how much Greg cares about his plant monsters. A few days after the arrival of the sorceresses from the Royal Magical Army, Noct was resting under the bright sun. The butler, Joseph, grumbled as usual at the young master for continuing to do nothing from time to time. Noct explained his rest by saying that you always need to be consistent in everything. Joseph wondered if it would be all right to guard the area when the young lord of these lands was just lying around so carefree and resting. And does Mr. Noct really not care about that at all? Noct replied that everything was under control, and he left the defense concerns to the others and everything would go on as usual. The young lord said that one should be able to trust sorceresses, and if they really have a problem, he's sure they'll be notified right away. The young lord also said that he thinks it's best to let every person who has a goal do what they want to do, and it's better than trying to remake this person in your own way. After all, if a person does everything in his own way, then in the end you can get more results from him. The butler, Joseph, replied that it certainly didn't sound bad at first glance. But still, as a local lord, you need to pay more attention to the territories. Noct decided that he couldn't change the grumpy butler's mind, and said that he would go and see how things were going right now. As Noct strolled through his settlement, he saw the residents looking contented. Many people were happy that they came to live in this place. Everyone also enjoyed the excellent quality of local food, which was delicious and varied. The butler, Joseph, said that at first glance everything was going well, and that he was personally very happy. Young Lord Noct remembered that he had many rare and interesting items that Merchant Raphael had brought to the city from various places. Noct thought it would be very interesting for its residents to see all this. There were really a lot of people in the shopping plaza. Mare, the maid, was glad that there were many unfamiliar faces and new merchants from other cities around. Noct said that their economy is improving, because more people are coming to them from other possessions, and this is a good sign. And as far as he's concerned, it's not just because of the rare things Raphael was able to bring along. The young lord explained that there were many different goods to buy in their city that couldn't be found anywhere else. After all, even unusual berries are a feature of their lands. And thanks to his augmentation skills and Mare's ability to grow cages, it will be possible to buy all non-seasonal vegetables in this market at any time. Noct said that they have an excellent choice for any buyer, and the merchant Raphael was able to provide good advertising, which gave the result. The young lord confessed that he had another plan in the works. Noct explained that with his magnification skill, he enlarged the glass and was able to build a great greenhouse. Even here, Butler Joseph found a reason not to be too outraged. He complained that it was too wasteful to use the precious glass like this, and Mare said that all this looks very beautiful and unusual. The young lord explained that the glass perfectly transmits the sun's rays and maintains a high temperature inside the room, and it would be quite nice to make several such greenhouses. After all, thanks to the greenhouse, even without skills, anyone can easily grow any vegetables, regardless of the time of year. The butler, Joseph, admitted that he had not expected such ingenious inventions from Noct. The young master replied that they all needed to restore this land to its former greatness, and those seeds that they were able to plant at the very beginning of their journey gradually begin to germinate and bear fruit. Soon, sorceresses busy with defensive fortifications reported that the last section of the wall was already ready. Noct thanked them for the result and thought they were really capable. The magician showed the created layout, and Noct was surprised at how heavy it was with its small size. The girls explained that the three of them made this project using materials that are filled with deadly magic, and they didn't manage to make the layout a little larger. but even so, they are confident that it will be enough to increase Noct. The young lord himself thought that he wasn't entirely sure that this section was a good one. Lionett stated that they had developed different ways to kill enemies, and they will only need to get a little more additional information about possible enemies. Noct said it wasn't worth talking about right now. The young lord said that he would ask the sorceresses when the time came, but for now, he needed to look at what they had done. Noct used the item magnification skill, and the wall instantly became huge. The young lord admired the result and decided that his city now looked and was protected like a royal palace. Lionett proudly stated that now no threat is terrible for this territory, because with such a wall, this city has become an invulnerable fortress. Noct was thrilled with the result and knew that the city was no longer afraid of any attacks. And now you cannot even be afraid of demons, since no one can overcome such walls with protective devices. But everyone's joy was rudely interrupted by a loud roar that came from the direction of the forest. Something huge quickly approached the city, and a real panic began. After all, everyone realized that against the flying threat, excellent protective walls will not help in any way. The huge dragon began to hover over the city, looking for a suitable target, and young Lord Noct, stunned by what he saw, thought that this was too much even for his land. Once the defensive wall around the city was completed, the big small territories became invincible. At least that's what everyone who lived there thought. But then a huge dragon appeared, which destroyed the confidence in full defense. Young Mr. Noct was very puzzled by this problem, and the very next day decided to look for a solution. Noct dug into his books, hoping to find the answer to the question of how to resist the flying monster. The butler, Joseph, was more surprised than ever by Noct's behavior and asked if the young lord had worked all night on the fly. Noct replied that he was looking for the necessary solutions, and as soon as he finds the answers, he'll go straight to bed, so Joseph doesn't have to worry. Mayor also became concerned about Lord Noct and tried to persuade him to get some rest. But the guy said how can he sleep in peace when all his residents of the city are scared and have lost all sleep? Noct explained that he wanted to deal with the cursed dragon as soon as possible. After all, if they don't deal with him soon, well, it's probably going to get a lot worse, and they can't afford to make mistakes in this situation. The young lord explained that in Master Rosenford's library, he hadn't found any weaknesses in dragons yet, and it turns out that these beasts are so legendary that there is practically no information about them, not to mention a description of their weaknesses. Jaelna suddenly burst into the room and excitedly shouted that they had no choice this time. Jaelna exclaimed that now they just had to build a great pub. Jaelna said that with a good drink, young Lord Noct would be able to forget about all the problems. Noct reminded her that he had already heard this from Jaelna more than once, and it was time for her to be more original. Noct said that instead of getting drunk, it was better to take some rational measures. But Jaelna replied that this was all nonsense and suggested that we go outside as soon as possible. As it turned out, an epidemic of alcoholism broke out among the residents of the settlement, and everyone found solace and oblivion in a bottle of strong drink. People have not found any other way to deal with stress, but to start drinking right on the street. Jaelna said that's why they need a special place, a bar, so that no one gets sick when they drink outside. The young lord was shocked by the sight. A whole crowd of drunken people, who don't do anything, quit their jobs, and search for alcohol. Noct couldn't believe that all this had happened in just one night. The young lord decided that he needed to hurry up with the problem of the dragon. Otherwise, his settlement would already self-destruct from alcohol. Lord Noct decided to launch a scouting mission outside his domain. The only problem on the way to this was that it was not clear who exactly to choose for this purpose. Luz was a capable hunter and an experienced scout. Greg, a strong guy and a true adventurer with a strong tamer skill. Lion is a former elite earth mage in the king's magic army. Cedo is like Lion from the same magic army, but she is also very smart. Juno is a former elite earth mage who is perfectly suited to support the rear guard. Berdine, a noisy giant girl who has great power. Joseph is just the usual annoying butler. And of course, Mare is a witty and loyal maid who has the skills of a healer. It was a difficult choice, and Noct couldn't figure out who he should take with him on this difficult task. Greg certainly has good combat experience and is very good at taming, which may be useful this time. Therefore, Greg is a good candidate for the success of the mission. Although there is also a high probability that his character can lead everyone to the worst possible situation. In addition, city security can be useful in case everything goes wrong and you have to urgently evacuate residents of the city. Therefore, you should pay attention to the other applicants for participation in the task. In the end, the young lord made his choice. Noct said that Juno would have to be responsible for communicating with the squad during their mission. Juno promised that she would do everything perfectly and that she could be trusted to do it. Noct went on to tell the elf Luz that her scouting skills were key to this mission, and so he relies entirely on her skill as a hunter and the abilities of an experienced elf. Luz admitted that she has seen dragons before and will try to do everything at the perfect level. Lord Noct thought that the team had a great attitude and therefore had a good chance of success. Noct reminded them once again to be extremely careful, and the giantess Berdine cried out that it would be so. Noct realized that Berdine was probably the weakest link that could fail them, but she was also very powerful. Noct also noticed that the elf Luz drinks a lot of water and may be nervous, although perhaps an experienced huntress just needs to cool down a little. After all, she is an elf who has fought many times with different monsters and like no one else should behave calmly. Although with such a formidable opponent as the legendary dragon, none of them have yet encountered, and it is not known what to expect. Very soon, the team, led by Lord Noct, was able to find the very dragon that had disturbed the peace of the settlement. Everyone was surprised at how this fearsome monster neatly eats small nadir berries. Juno said that this is very strange because the dragon has red scales and it is clearly supposed to be a predator, but it turns out that it is an omnivore. Noct asked Huntress Luz what she thought they should do next, but instead of answering, the experienced elf only pressed her lips hungrily to her flask. Such a strange reaction surprised all the members of the team, and Lord Noct asked what was going on with her. Noct took the elf's flask in his hands and realized that it was not water at all, but strong alcohol. Huntress Luz explained that alcohol is very tasty, and thanks to it, she can forget about all the worries. Noct realized that he had made a mistake in his choice and apologized to Luz for making her so scared. But at that moment, the flustered Juno shouted that this wasn't the time for idle chatter. After all, the dragon has noticed them and is rapidly approaching. The hero team was confused for a while. Lord Noct asked why the dragon was so distracted by the delicious berries and chose them as its target. At this moment, the giant girl Berdine exclaimed that the dragon was eating her favorite berries and ran at the mighty monster. Luz, the elf, followed in her wake. Lord Noct was surprised to see what was happening and said that this couldn't be happening. There is a special black Iberian pig in nature, and if you constantly add acorns to her food, then pig meat will acquire a special taste thanks to such an additive. Something similar has happened now. Berdine has been eating nadir berries since she was a child, and over time, her body was filled with the smell of berries, which attracted the dragon now. The dragon did approach, and Noct hurried to help, for it was now obvious that the monster was only interested in Berdine. But unexpectedly, the huge dragon did not head towards the giant girl at all, but cautiously approached the elf Luz. Lord Noct didn't understand what was going on, but it was all very strange. Then, to everyone's surprise, the flying monster apologized for scaring everyone, because it didn't really want to. Lord Noct said that it wasn't really true that the dragon was talking to them. Elf Luz said that magical creatures can use human speech, but this is the first time she has encountered such a phenomenon, and she did not expect it herself. The dragon laughed and said that of course dragons can talk, and even very loudly, so that no one will be able to sleep in peace. Everyone was shocked by the mighty beast's cry, and the dragon just asked if they were all right. Lord Noct thought that all this was very interesting, but such a monster does not seem to be a harmless beast at all, and it really inspires fear. Plucking up his courage, Lord Noct asked the dragon why he had come to this land, since he had never been here before. The dragon replied that he had come here for the sole purpose of plundering the land. Then the dragon asked not to worry and not to be afraid of him, if suddenly he scared someone with his appearance. The mighty beast explained that he was only here for the purple berries, and since the Titan's daughter loves them, then he always wanted to try these berries. Lord Noct asked why the dragon hadn't tasted the berries in that case, since he really wanted to taste them. The dragon explained that Berdine always looked very happy when she ate these berries, and he was very sorry to deprive the girl of such pleasure. Berdine indignantly asked if the dragon felt sorry for the elf Luz, who was very scared when he got so close to her. The dragon apologized and admitted that he was very attracted to the smell of alcohol, and he was able to restrain himself from surging desire. Noct thought about it, because he hadn't even expected dragons to be interested in alcohol. Dragon said he had a small request to make to the humans. The magic monster asked to be allowed to take at least one sip of the fragrant alcoholic drink. Luz quickly filled a plate with the intoxicating drink, and Lord Noct asked the dragon to wait a bit. Using item magnification magic, Noct enlarged the plate many times to give the dragon enough alcohol. The huge beast was delighted with what he saw, and Noct offered the beast a treat. Together they set up a table and gathered berries, which Lord Noct also increased in size so that there was enough food for everyone. For the first time in history, a magic dragon and humans began to drink and eat in a place. The dragon admitted that he was very pleased to be in such a company and everything was very tasty. The dragon then said that as far as he understood, the young master had two skills. The one he'd just seen when Noct zoomed in on everything on the table. And apparently, there is a skill of the opposite action, which reduces everything. Noct was surprised by the flying monster's knowledge and asked how he knew about it. The dragon explained that Berdine was the giant girl who always ate berries in the forest, and now it is quite ordinary in size, which means that someone was able to reduce it. The dragon admitted that he had been waiting for a long time to meet Noct, and thanks to his shrinking ability, they could become good friends. Berdine exclaimed that the dragon could be friends with her, since she was Mr. Noct's personal bodyguard. The dragon chuckled at the giant girl's words and asked why Noct was covering for Berdine if she was the bodyguard. Suddenly, the dragon's huge tail rose up and everyone was very scared. But the dragon, as it turned out, just decided to pat Noct on the head and said that he was a very nice guy. At this moment, the young lord felt very strange and even remembered how his father had stroked his head a long time ago as a child. Then everyone continued to communicate, and Berdine tiredly stated that she was very full. The dragon asked the giant girl if she really liked these purple berries so much. Lord Noct asked if the dragon would go anywhere after eating all these berries, and what his plans were. The dragon replied that at first he wanted to, but now after meeting everyone, he has already changed his mind and does not want to leave this land. Suddenly, a magical aura enveloped the mighty beast, and in a moment, the dragon turned into an almost ordinary person. Lord Noct was surprised by the dragon's sudden transformation into a muscular man, and the dragon explained that this is one of his abilities and he can turn into a human if he wants to. Noct thought that if the dragon said that, then it must have other abilities as well, and it turns out that abilities are not necessarily related to magic power. The dragon then asked if he could live in peace in Lord Noct's domain. Juno, surprised by the sight of the naked man, asked if the legendary dragon had decided to join the human settlement. Dragon Poe knew that living alone was very boring, and he didn't want it anymore, so it would be great if they could take him in. The dragon also complained that it had been a very long time since he had drunk such delicious sake, and he also constantly longs for the food that a person cooks. The dragon then confessed that he was also interested in Mr. Noct's abilities and wanted to get to know him better. The young lord clearly didn't expect such attention from the dragon and froze a little in surprise. Dragon explained that mostly people with such rare abilities as Noct have very interesting lives, and so he would like to know what Mr. Noct is capable of. The young lord hesitantly replied that he didn't even know how to answer because everything was complicated, but the dragon said that everything is much simpler than it seems, and they should all have a good time together. Lord Noct thought back to his own childhood, when such words were often spoken to him and life was full of fun. Noct told the dragon that as lord of these lands, he was glad to welcome him to his home. The dragon thanked him for agreeing to stay and said that his name was Hornbeam. As a sign of friendship, the dragon shook the young lord's hand, causing Noct to cry out. The Hornbeam apologized for not calculating its strength, because it cannot immediately get used to the human body. From that moment on, the Big Small Lands have a new powerful friend, the Red Dragon, Mr. Grub. Grub said that a beautiful wall surrounds the city and he admires its view. Juno said that these walls were built by her squad of elite mages together with Mr. Noct. The squad finally returned to their hometown, with a new friend with them. Lord Noct could not help thinking that Mr. Grub reminded him very much of his dead father. There was a certain confidence and strength of a manly man about this dragon. Lion asked Lord Noct if he had been able to find the dragon in the forest. Lord Noct replied that the mission was fruitless and the dragon was nowhere to be found. The young master decided to reveal the truth and not say in front of the residents that they really met the dragon, and even brought it with them to the city. Since this can cause even more panic, Noct whispered softly to Lion that the dragon was with them. But just as the surprised sorceress wanted to ask more, Noct put his hand over her mouth. The young lord asked Lion to calm down and continue the conversation in his office. In the end, without any witnesses, Noct told his closest friends how they found the dragon and what happened next. Lionette asked where the dragon was now, since it had been found. The young lord calmly replied that the dragon would be in this room with them. Seeing this as another of Noct's jokes, everyone pretended to be looking for a dragon, even in flower pots. Grab still decided to prove himself and pointing to his hand asked, Maybe so Mr. Noctu will believe more. Out of surprise, the sorceress lioness screamed that the dragon had deliberately used its skills to disguise itself as an ordinary person. Hornbeam asked if he could get back to his normal self after all, but the young lord hastened to convince the Hornbeam to do this, because with its huge size, it will instantly destroy everything around it. Agitated, Lionette asked Noct to come with her for a moment. The girl asked if the young master was sure it was a good idea to bring a dragon here. Noct thought about it and realized that he didn't know the answer to that question himself. After all, how can he be sure that the dragon will not harm this settlement in any way? In the meantime, Grub became interested in Greg and said that Greg was doing an interesting job. Greg didn't understand what they were talking about and became visibly agitated. Grub explained that he noticed scratches on Greg's armor and a peculiar smell, and so Greg is probably a tamer. Hornbeam said that certain markings suggested that Greg must be growing mandrakes. Lord Noct realized that this was not entirely a good thing, since the dragon might think badly of them because of Greg's infatuation. But his fears were unfounded, and Hornbeam good-naturedly admitted that this was very familiar to him, because he had also bred such plants before. Lord Noct breathed a sigh of relief and thought it was incredible that a dragon would do such a thing. Greg was overjoyed and declared that he had finally found a friend. Greg even complained that everyone called his job terrible and only he found it his calling. Hornbeam also said that these are beautiful mandrake creatures and their cultivation requires good knowledge. Hornbeam explained that depending on the soil and how they are grown, mandrakes can reach any size. The dragon said that once he even flew around the world in search of the best soil for growing, and thanks to this journey, it was possible to find out that the most nutrient-rich soil is located in the south, and the soil of the Great Forest is most saturated with magic. Noct, listening to Grub's story, was surprised at how enthusiastic he was about this activity. Hornbeam boasted to Greg and showed him how big a mandrake he had once grown. Greg happily exclaimed that it was more than 3 times the size of the one he had grown. Greg asked how Hornbeam did it. The dragon replied that Greg was too young. Greg agreed that he didn't have enough experience, but he would really like to know the secret of the Dragon Master. Grub asked if Greg wanted to be his student. Greg exclaimed without hesitation that he really wanted this and would try his best to meet the dragon's expectations. Lord Noct thought that Greg had hit it off faster with the dragon than he had. Lion was also surprised at how quickly the dragon could find a friend among humans. Greg also admitted that he is especially sad when the creature he cares about dies and has to see it dead. But the main thing is that they are there, and whether they die or not, mandrakes still remain in the ground. Even on this point, Greg and Grub agreed. Lionette said she couldn't believe how quickly everyone became friends with this dragon. Noct replied that this was rather unusual. But in any case, let everything go as it should. The young lord then explained to his friends that the news of who the Hornbeam really was would only be known to them. And for the rest of us, this must remain a secret, otherwise there may be a panic in the city. Lord Noct decided that since Grub was such a sociable guy, it would be useful for everyone. Then Noct thought that it was time for him to rest and finally go to bed. But Garb offered to go for a walk and have a little chat, because he hadn't been around people for a very long time and missed talking. Noct hadn't expected such an offer, and Grub apologized for being too hasty. Noct realized that this was a good idea and said that it would really be better this way, and it is better to go as soon as possible. Grub asked if they were going to go outside right now. Noct replied that there was nothing wrong with that, and told him to hurry. Lord Noct explained that it was time to introduce the dragon to his city. Garb thought about it and asked me to start with the market. Lord Noct said that the market was the busiest place in the city, since all people come here to make purchases and just chat. Noct said that the merchant Raphael supplies the market with all the necessary goods, and Mr. Garb can find anything in this market, including the best sake. The dragon was interested in the alcoholic drink and said that the perfectly prepared sake is so delicious that it allows you to relax your soul and get real pleasure. Noct thought about the dragon's words and said that the vegetables they grow in their greenhouses are also very tasty and worth trying. The young lord said that they built this greenhouse with the help of his magical abilities and the delicate work of carpenters. Noct explained that with the help of glass and its properties, you can grow any crop regardless of the time of year. Garb replied that Noct was a very interesting person and used his abilities very well. Next, the young lord showed the place where the nadir berry grows and invited the dragon to enjoy their taste. Garb asked if he understood correctly that it was from these berries that the sake he drank in the forest was made. Noct replied that it was true, and that the berries made an excellent sake. The dragon smelled a delicious smell and asked what it could be. Lord Noct replied that it was nothing special and not worth paying attention to. Noct decided to warm up the interest in this way, and then said that there is a small winery ahead. Garb was ready to run in the direction of the winery, but the young lord advised them to follow him and watch something more interesting. Lord Noct showed the dragon a heavenly bathhouse that can be enjoyed for as little as 5,000 rubles. Garb admitted that the view in the bathhouse is excellent, but only he is not quite comfortable. Garb explained that when it comes to hot springs, he can't stand it for long. Noct apologized for putting the dragon in an awkward position and offered him a better drink. Herb also apologized for causing unnecessary trouble to Mr. Noct and disturbing the peace of his settlement. After a hot bath, Noct and Garb enjoyed the cold coffee that Mr. Levy usually made, but the dragon couldn't completely calm down after the hot bath and felt strange. After all, cold coffee wasn't what he wanted at all. Garb couldn't contain his animal instincts and vented his accumulated emotions. This effect was like an explosion. Levy felt a surge of energy and collapsed with the trays on the floor, and Noct realized that he had done something wrong. Yahello yelled at Noct that he had made the dragon so angry, and that he had every right to do so. Noct really didn't understand how he could have caused such a reaction in the dragon. After all, he even missed his afternoon nap. The young lord explained that he was just trying to introduce the dragon to the city they had built together, and he figured the sooner he did it, the better it would be. But Yahello said that the only thing that everyone wants now is to drink good alcohol. That much Noct should have known. The young lord asked Garb if this was really the case, and if the dragon wanted a drink so badly. Garb replied that this was exactly the case. Noct immediately asked them to bring them a drink and do it quickly. But Yahello said that this will not be enough and everyone wants not just to drink, but to do it in a place where it will be pleasant to do it. Garb agreed with Yahello and added that such a place would be a pleasure to visit. Noct genuinely didn't understand and asked if it really made any difference where to drink alcohol. Yahello sighed heavily and asked why Noct was so ignorant of this matter, since he was a lord and should understand the wishes of his people. Garb explained to the laptop that drinking at home or in a diner is not the same as drinking in a great bar. Yahello dreamily began to say that the only fairy tale for an adult in a sea of everyday worries and the best place to spend a pleasant leisure time is of course a good bar. The girl said the last sentence at the same time as the dragon, which proved their common desires. Lord Noct understood what they wanted and was surprised that different creatures wanted the same thing, just a good drink. Garb asked Noct to take him to the best bar as soon as possible, but Yahello was sorry to say that they didn't have a single bar in town. The dragon was outraged that such a thing simply could not happen, because this is a terrible omission. Yahello explained that they were planning to build a bar, but they never found the time. Garb said with disappointment that it was a real tragedy and how people can live in peace in a city without a bar. Noct hadn't expected such a reaction, and regretted that he hadn't thought it was so important before. Dragon and Ghislaine were asked to organize the construction of a bar as soon as possible in order to return the fairy tale to the souls of people. At the same time, Yahello began to call Garb her friend, because their desires completely coincide. Noct was once again surprised at how easily the dragon found a common language with other residents of the city. Garb and Ghislaine enjoyed discussing what the bar should be like and how best to arrange everything there. During the discussion, Garb and Yahello quenched their thirst with tea and looked forward to drinking alcohol. After a while, their wishes came true and the first bar was built in the city. The opening of this establishment attracted all the residents of the city, and there was a real queue of people who wanted to visit the bar. Lord Noct received a message saying that a seat at the bar was reserved for him and everyone would be happy to see him. Noct accepted the invitation, of course, and admitted to himself that he hadn't expected it at all, since he had never been to a bar in his previous life. Noct forced open the heavy front door and found himself in the bar. Dragon Garb greeted the young lord and invited him to sit at the bar. Garb found his calling and chose the role of a local bartender. Garb offered Noctu a strange appetizer to start with. Then he brought out a menu that looked more like a book. Lord Noct opened the menu in surprise and looked at the many names and pictures. Noct thought that he didn't even know what to choose, since he didn't know much about the menu. Noct remembered how Yahello and the dragon had enjoyed talking about relaxing in the bar, but he didn't understand it all, and that annoyed Noct a lot. Garb asked what Lord Noct wanted to try. The young lord replied that he wanted something delicious and simple. I thought that was probably the worst thing to say in a bar. Dragon Garb realized that Noct was uncomfortable in the bar and advised him to say that he wanted something refreshing, and then it will look quite ordinary, as for a bar visitor. The young lord understood the principle of service of this establishment and decided to try to make an order. Noct said that he would like to try something that would make him sleepy. Garb replied that he would do everything right. Noct watched the dragon's deft movements and marveled at Garb's ability to perform miracles at the bar. Soon Garb offered to try the drink. Lord Noct heard the tart aroma and said it smelled very good. The red dragon thanked Noct for showing the city all its beauty and explained that it was a special cocktail based on nadir berry wine. At the same time, the cocktail contains sweetness and some notes of lemon. Noct took a few sips and admitted that it was delicious. The young lord then asked what the name of this cocktail was. Garb replied that they had not yet come up with names for many of the cocktails, so it would be a great idea to name this cocktail after these lands. The dragon asked if the original cocktail could be named after young Mr. Noct. Lord Noct was surprised by the suggestion and considered. Noct then confessed that he had never expected that such a place could be so easy to come to and really relax. Noct agreed with the name and asked to give the same cocktail to Jailing. Jailna asked Noct, grinning, if he understood the bar's charm now. Lord Noct really understood that drinking at home or in a cafe is one thing, but drinking in a bar is quite another. And now he understands what fairy tale Ukrashushi everyday life Jailna said when she wanted to visit the bar. Lord Noct's next drink was to Olivia's beautiful eyes, who was also happy to visit the bar. Olivia was embarrassed and said it was a nice bar and if he could come here more often. Noct replied that the place was completely at everyone's disposal. Lord Noct ordered another drink for the young lady, looking pleased, and Kuklua happily accepted this news. The little doll was a little upset because they only poured milk, but then the young lady still exclaimed, offering everyone to drink to the bottom. The merchant Raphael also decided to come to the bar, which surprised Noct a little. The young lord hastened to explain that Raphael might have misunderstood him and that he had no intention of interfering in the affairs of his subjects. But the merchant replied that he did not mind at all, and in fact everything was fine. Raphael asked if the lit young lord would like to try and get something for himself. Noct wondered what that might mean, and was even interested in learning more. Raphael told about the existence of the metro mine and suggested that it would be nice to use them for the development of the settlement's infrastructure. Indeed, there was one underground mine that connected the land of Bigsmal and Hadlet. In ancient times, these mines were mined for jewelry and minerals, and after the invasion of the Orc army, the mine was abandoned due to a lack of workers and production completely stopped. Noct realized that these were very different times and that it might be worth using this mine. Raphael, the merchant, explained that the mine would bring back the wealth of the land, just as it had in the old days, and young Lord Noct should be able to handle the minerals and gems perfectly. Raphael offered to drink to that and think carefully about the prospect. Noct thought that this was indeed a devilish temptation. Since Raphael was right about the mine, Lord Noct said it would be good if they could find new materials, and then Jailna will definitely be able to do something interesting. Raphael agreed with these ideas and continued to drink. A little later, Noct thought that after that conversation with merchant Raphael, he had reached some point of no return. Maid Mare greeted the young master with a welcome back. Noct found Greg with Mare. The excited tamer asked the maid to try her ability again. Greg explained that if she could get the cell activation from Kabisuk, they would be able to kill the monster. Lord Noct thought that Greg was completely delusional, and that his activity in raising all sorts of strange animals could lead to a biological catastrophe. Butler Joseph listened to the idea of mining and said that Noct's skills would allow him to get rich very quickly with the help of precious stones. The young lord explained that this was exactly what merchant Raphael expected of him. Mare asked who Mr. Noct would trust to mine the precious stones. The young lord replied that before deciding everything, you need to carefully study the whole process and inspect the territory. After all, those mines have been abandoned for a very long time, and it is not known in what condition they are. Lord Noct decided to check everything out and destroy all the monsters that probably breed there. And after ensuring security at the mineral extraction site, it will be necessary to send workers there. The young lord stated that he would personally go to inspect the mine first, and therefore needed to decide who would go with him. Noct said that Berdine would definitely go with him, since it would be impossible to avoid a fight with monsters, and it remains to be seen how many more people to take with you for this mission. Maid Mare asked me to take her with me too, because if there is a battle, then she will definitely come in handy with her abilities. Noct agreed with this statement, as a healer on this trip can be useful, especially if someone gets injured. Greg said that he also wants to join this campaign and will help in the research. The excited tamer explained that he just had to collect all the new monsters that might inhabit the cave. Lord Noct wasn't too happy about the idea, and then he explained that if Greg brought another strange creature into town, the sorceress lionette would definitely kill him, without any regret. But Greg didn't want to hear the rejection, and asked him to take it with him, because that's what he really wants. Lord Noct wondered if Greg had been saying some strange things lately, and if he really had created the tyrant Mandrake. Noct didn't bother to torment Greg, though, and let him go with him. The young lord said that it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring the sorceress Juno along as well. Mare reminded him that they'd been together before, when they'd gone hunting for dragons in the woods. Noct explained that Juno often looks around and is very helpful in small things, so you can rely on her in emergency situations. Noct also recalled how Juno was very helpful in cleaning up after lunch in the fresh air, which was also a useful skill. In that situation, Juno admitted that she likes to do ordinary things, and she does not mind helping at all. Juno then confessed that she sees how Lord Noct often pays attention to her, and she is happy to work under such a good person. Lord Noct realized in that moment that Juno was actually a librarian who was constantly in the shadows and alone. Noct tried to explain to Juno that there was no need to be so shy about other people and that she was much better off without a hood. Lion noticed the pre-hike preparations and asked what they were doing and why Juno was involved. Juno that they are going to go to the subway mines to explore them before starting work. Lion was outraged by this and reminded her that Juno was at it again and trying to get involved in dangerous things. And it wasn't so long ago that she went looking for a dragon. Juno replied that she had been appointed by Mr. Noct and would be useful on the trip. Cedo and Lion were surprised by Juno's eagerness for adventure and watched with interest as they set off on the trek. Noct tried to explain to Lion that Juno was a useful member of the team and needed her. But the sorceress Lion did not agree with such arguments and decided to hide Juno. Then Lionette said that it was a dangerous trip to unknown mines, and that means she will personally accompany Mr. Noct on this mission. No one had expected this, and Noct thought that now he didn't even know what to expect from it. Mare, the maid, had told them before the trip that they might lose, but she had tried to put the bad thoughts aside right away so as not to harm anyone. Berdine promised that she would be able to protect everyone, so there is no need to worry and worry. Greg asked me to keep an eye on Lion so that she wouldn't get hurt, because he considers her his friend. Lord Noct realized that this time they would definitely have to fight, and Juno would be best suited to such a situation. Although nothing can be done and Lion is really very motivated to go with everyone, Noct told the sorceress that in that case, he was looking forward to working with her. Well, if they have a long journey ahead of them, then before it starts, you need to make sure that they are fully prepared for everything. Cedo wondered with Greg why he took mandrakes with him, and Lionette was asking how far away the mine was. Lord Noct explained that the journey would take about 5 hours on foot each way. Mare, the maid, remarked that it would have been different, and much quicker, if they had had a carriage for the occasion. Noct asked me not to worry about it, and with his item augmentation skill, he made the cart much bigger. The young lord then asked Berdine to pull the cart and go up to the mountain, as she was the strongest among them. Berdine heard the command, "Let's go," easily moved the loaded cart, and the team of friends set off. Greg was the only one who was not happy and constantly asked to go slower, because his mandrakes were flying on every hummock. Very soon, the team of heroes was at the entrance to the mountain. Everyone was surprised by the size of the mountain, because it was much larger than Mr. Noct's house. The sorceress of Lion Eyes said that this beautiful place is worthy of hosting pioneers. The giant girl Berdine didn't wait for an order to say that it was time to go inside and rushed forward. But Lord Noct stopped her and explained that the first step was to check the area near the mountain. The nearest building turned out to be an office previously used by mine workers. Noct noticed that the door was securely locked and that no one had been inside for a long time. Greg asked if the Lord didn't have the right key with him. Noct recalled how he once lost the key to the entire territory and could never remember where he might have done it. Berdine stated that she could easily open the door by force, and Noct explained that what she wanted to do was called property damage. The young lord considered his options and decided that it might be easier if he tried to shrink the door first. But the sorceress Lion said that there was no need to hurry and she knew how to solve the problem. The girl quickly created the right key and began to open the ancient lock. Noct was surprised that Lion would be able to please him with her abilities more than once. After a couple of minutes, the sorceress Lion invited everyone to come inside in a satisfied voice. The young lord said that her skills were similar to those of an experienced thief. At this remark, Lionette was immediately indignant and felt insulted. Lionette then asked why Noct hadn't complimented her and petted her like he did with Berdine. The young lord apologized and said that he was grateful for the help. Noct then asked if Lion would be able to open the door just as easily in one of the locked houses on his property. Lionette was overjoyed and said that she would not let anyone stand in the way of Monsieur Noct. The room met the guests with an unpleasant smell and heavy dust. Lord Noct said the house had been left unattended for almost 6 months, and Mare admitted that she had never seen so much dust before. Greg noticed that this room was very spacious, and Noct pointed out the sleeping places for the workers, and it became clear what this house was used for. Greg suggested that the building could be used further, but that it needed to be put in order first. Lion reminded him that thanks to her efforts, the door was not broken, but the young lord said it was no good. Noct explained that such a bed was not for the staff, and it's not clear what happened to the bedding, because it looks like a wet rice cracker. The young lord said that first of all, they should improve everything here. Mare, the maid, praised Noct for his thoughtful plan and promised to help with everything. Berdine found the box and asked what kind of beautiful stones it contained. Lord Noct explained that the photo is a luminescent stone that glows in response to the influence of magic. Noct pointed to one of the stones and said that this one glowed dimly because of the magic in the atmosphere around it, and if you push it hard enough, it will turn into a lamp and give a bright light. Berdine exclaimed that it was a real miracle. Lord Noct then asked the giant girl to break one of the stones. The sorceress Lionette asked why they did this, because such a stone is very expensive. Noct explained that they needed more pieces to light the mine and the estate. Noct then used his reduction skill to make smaller tools and asked everyone to take their mining tools with them. Lionette did not understand why to do this and said that it was completely absurd. When the team entered the mine, Noct asked Berdine to lead the way, as she is very sensitive to signs and can sense danger in advance, and if they were suddenly attacked, Greg would stand up for everyone else. The young lord explained to Lina that Greg and Berdine were experienced warriors, as they had already fought the Orc King, and could therefore be relied upon. Lionette was surprised by this and felt much more confident. Greg realized that during the battle with the Orc King, Lord Noct had shown great skill and helped deal with the danger. Noct joked that this time it was worth hoping for him, because he did not take them with him for nothing. Lord Noct admitted that it would be difficult for him to help in such a small room. After all, the zoom in and zoom out skill requires space. Lion was reminded that she, too, can fight and don't underestimate her. Noct replied that Lion would deal with the enemy when they entered the territory and it would be best for everyone. Noct thought that even though Sorceress Lion was a former member of the Emperor's army, she was still an engineer and that was her main vocation. And that's why he shouldn't deliver her, do something she's not ready for. Noct said that now we should go further, but at that moment there was a strange sound that was rapidly approaching. Huge monster ants began to crawl out to meet the guests of the dungeon. Greg and Berdine immediately prepared for battle and began covering the others. But to everyone's surprise, the sorceress Lion was able to stop the monsters with her magic. Lion proudly said that this was their territory and she wouldn't protect them. Noct thought that he now understood what the Royal Magical Army was all about. This mine was long abandoned due to the fact that after the attack of the orcs, there was not a single worker left. The mine is a very closed space, and therefore it is very difficult to apply the skills of increasing and decreasing objects, as this will be dangerous. It also turned out that this place is just teeming with different monsters. Lord Noct admitted that there were more monsters than expected, and no matter how much they kill them, more and more monsters constantly appear. Mare, the terrified maid, asked what they should all do, since Master Noct was too tired from such a battle. Suddenly, an unusual monster of huge size appeared. Lord Noct felt even worse, and Mare hurried to his aid. Meanwhile, the giant girl Berdine continued to fight monsters and perform miracles in an attempt to protect her master. Undaunted Berdine only laughed as she beat up another opponent. Mare tried to reassure the master and said that Berdine was really very strong and would be able to protect them. Lord Noct felt very bad and said that these monster ants were too dangerous. During the battle, Greg asked the giant girl to be a little more careful and not destroy everything around her. Lord Noct was once again surprised at how attentive Greg was to small details and caring for his monsters. Berdine, despite everything, continued to destroy the monsters on her way. The sorceress Lion also did not stay away and participated in the cleaning of the mine. She used magic and created earthen stakes that easily destroyed the monster ants. Leone was very happy with the result and said that it was a real pleasure. After all, every time they kill a monster, the world becomes a better place. Lord Noct watched his companions and rejoiced in the general success. though it seemed to him that he was the only one who took everything seriously. Then something unseen struck painfully at the ears that appeared from the depths of the tunnel. The Lord shouted that it was a huge vampire bat. Noct knew that there were certainly vampire bats here, but it was very strange for them to be this large. Namely, this vampire bat was simply gigantic in size, and it is not known whether it is one of its kind. After the vampire bat's attack, Greg looked at his destroyed monsters with a pained expression. Noct shouted that Greg should be careful, because if a bat ate his pet, it might eat him too. Then something incredible happened. The vampire bat was able to immobilize Berdine with its ultrasound and grabbed her. The sorceress lionette hurried to the giant girl's aid and used earthen stakes. Greg also charged and shouted that he would avenge his kabuki. A clever tamer was able to hit the vampire bat and snatch Berdine from its clutches. Lord Noct also didn't waste any time and managed to put up an earth shield in the way of the flying monster. The sorceress lionette admired the young lord's magical abilities. She noticed that the earth shield looked perfect and didn't have a single crack on it. Lionette asked where Mr. Noct was able to learn such a skill in earth magic. Noct vaguely replied that it was all worth it to continue taking a hot bath regularly. Lionette said it was incredible that they could meet the Bat King in such a place. But the young lord replied that it didn't look like it was the king, since he didn't show any special skills. Noct suggested that the bat had a common mutation and therefore reached such a large size. Then a dead end appeared on the path of the team, and it became a problem where to go next. Maid noticed that there was a small opening at the bottom of the wall. Lord Noct immediately used the magnification skill and expanded the passage to its normal size. The resulting passage surprised all the team members, because the ceiling of the cave sparkled with precious stones, of which there were countless. Noct, moving slowly forward, asked what it was all about. The sorceress explained to Lion that all this is just ordinary manatite and nothing more. The young lord remembered that he had heard such a name before, but he couldn't understand what it all meant. Lionette explained that manatite ore is perfectly compatible with magical energy, and if you make a good staff from this ore, the magic of the owner of the staff will increase several times. And if you use this staff as a weapon, it can become a magic sword that increases strength and stamina, as well as grants special magic. Also, this ore is a very rare resource, and its cost can reach incredible figures. Usually, to equip one warrior with armor made from this ore, you need to spend at least 100,000 gold. Lord Noct said that this ore is indeed very expensive, and it will be possible to make an excellent profit with it. Noct thought that perhaps Merchant Raphael was well aware of the existence of such an ore, and therefore hinted about visiting the mine as soon as possible. And if they start mining such expensive ore, they will be able to use it to improve their territories. Noct said that he personally would be happy to inform all the residents of the settlement about this, and then yahello will surely organize a grand celebration on this occasion. Lord Noct also said that if they succeeded in extracting the rare ore, he would easily be able to pay the annual tax and not worry about it anymore. Mare, the maid, congratulated her master on his good fortune and said that going further would not be such a difficult task. Noct himself said that it was necessary to inform the merchant Raphael as soon as possible. The giant girl Berdine began to quickly drag the young lord somewhere. Noct asked her what she was doing, and Berdine explained that she wanted to show him something. There were some people near the huge vein of manatite, and the sorceress lion asked who they were and to whom they were subordinate. Lord Noct recognized these men, for he had seen them before. It was Alton, Margit, and Butts. People were very surprised to see Lord Noct standing in front of them. The sorceress lionette asked if they were any of Noct's acquaintances. The young lord explained that these people were workers who used to work in this mine. They were also former citizens of Big Small, and he'd seen them since he was a kid. Noct said he hadn't seen them in a very long time and asked them how they were doing now. From the looks of the three of them, it was clear that they weren't living a very good life, and Noct apologized for what they had been through during that time. People timidly replied that they were not so bad, and it was clear that they were just very scared. Lord Noct apologized for not being able to protect them when the orcs attacked the manor. Noct said that he was very happy to meet them and hadn't expected to see them here at all. The three miners were surprised by such a warm welcome from the lord of these lands. Noct asked them what they did to survive in such conditions. Suddenly, a huge guy appeared and started shouting at the miners and accusing them of not working. He was so cruel that he began to insult the exhausted people and began to force them to immediately extract manatite. Then the rough man noticed the presence of strangers and asked who they were and what right they had to be here. Mare hurried to help the battered woman by activating the cells. Noct replied that he was lord of the Big Small territory. At the same time, I realized that this impudent guy is most likely a local boss who oversees work in the mine. The brute lowered his anger a little, because he hadn't expected to see a real lord in this mine. The miners continued to talk quietly and tremble, experiencing genuine fear of the boss. The chief himself became very polite and said that it was a great honor to meet Lord Noct on his way. And then he said, just as politely, that Lord Noct and his company had better leave this place as soon as possible. The head of the miners explained that in fact this mine is located in such a way that it is both part of their hardlit territory and part of the Big Small territory, so it is very easy to confuse where it actually was in the mine. And specifically, this place where they are now located is the territory of Hardlet. Mare, the maid, asked indignantly if their neighbors really wanted to monopolize an entire monatite mine. Lord Noct was horrified at the thought, for all his hopes of paying his annual taxes now seemed unrealistic. And Rebecca will be very unhappy when she doesn't get the promised money. The head of the miners laughed and said, quite untruthfully, that he was very sorry that Lord Bigsmall was so upset. The sorceress lioness asked me not to jump to conclusions. And why did I ask if Hardlet's representatives could actually justify their rights to this mine? After all, judging by the map, this point is located on a neutral territory between two possessions, and therefore no one has the right to claim it alone. Lionett said that it is necessary to properly discuss this issue and find out who actually owns the manatite deposit. But the rough head of the miners snapped at the sorceress that no one here gave women the right to vote. Lion, not at all afraid of the size of the guy, replied that her gender had absolutely nothing to do with it. Lord Noct felt a growing rage at his superior's rudeness, for his behavior was anything but gentlemanly. The chief stated that he would only talk to Lord Noct, but still acknowledged that there were some points of contention. Therefore, this matter should be decided between the two lords. The boss said that it was necessary to inform his lord about the situation, and then it would be easier to solve the problem. Lord Noct said that if that was the case, both sides would now take some manatite for themselves, and then everything would be decided during negotiations. The head of the miners was not too happy about such a meeting and hurried back to his property. Mare's maid continued to resent the insolence and rudeness of an ordinary person. After all, he had spoken with utter disrespect to Lord Noct. The sorceress Lionett thanked the young master for standing up for her in this situation. After all, it was very brave and worthy of a lord. Lord Noct himself began to complain that now they had added another unplanned problem, and he did not know how to solve it. Mare hastened to reassure her master and reminded him not to behave like this in public. Butler Joseph said that the Hardlet family is not a very friendly neighbor. And in the past, when there were signs of an imminent attack of monsters from the big forest, Mr. Noct's father sent them requests for help. After all, it was always the custom among the lords of the harsh virgin lands to help each other, and everyone knew this unspoken rule. However, the neighbors never sent their troops to help, and the maximum they dared to help was a modest amount of resources. And then in rare cases, Mare, the maid, excitedly announced that a letter had arrived from the Hardlet area. The letter contained a message with an offer to come back tomorrow, and nothing more. The ruler was indicated as the ancestral estate of the Hardlet family. Mare was burning with anger at being so rude to Mr. Noct. The girl confessed that she wanted to kill them all for such audacity. Merchant Raphael said that it would be much better if the negotiators came here, because if you underestimate the strength of the enemy, you can pay for it with your life. Therefore, he believes that it is not necessary to go to the enemy's territory. Noct said that of course he understood everything, but still had to show courage, and therefore he would go to the specified place and at the specified time. It was a lord's duty, and he would do it for the future of his people and try to make the negotiations work. Mare, the maid, was praising Noct for his extraordinary diligence. For this morning, more than ever, he had decided to get up very early. The young lord replied wearily that it wasn't nice to be late for an appointment, so he had to sacrifice his sleep. The noisy Berdine did not calm down all the way and constantly asked how long they still had to go. Noct replied that it was necessary to be patient and not pull the curtains. And in general, today is an important day, because they are going to serious negotiations. The capital of the Hardlet lands was waiting for them in its obscurity, because no one knew how they would be treated there. The capital of the neighboring state turned out to be a large city, which impressed the guests with its appearance. There was an important conversation ahead about the extraction of the rare ore manatite. Lord Noct said he saw nothing surprising. Although the territory of the neighbors, it is the same plane as the territory of his lands. But here everything looks more prosperous, and perhaps the lands of the neighbors were simply not subjected to the barbaric attacks of the orcs. Berdine was surprised to see a very tall and unusual building ahead. Noct explained that the problem is that Hardlet is a multi-ethnic country and there is a mixture of different cultures. The young lord immediately asked Gilna and Rog to study this magnificent structure and see if they could create something similar in their city. Noct informed Huntress Luz that there were also elves living in this city, and that there might even be some of her acquaintances here. But Luz said sadly that she didn't think she knew anyone here, since she was the only elf from her village who went on a long journey, and her village is actually a closed area that no one leaves. Lord Noct was surprised to hear such revelations from Luz and wondered what had made this girl join his settlement. Noct didn't bother the elf with unnecessary questions and decided that he would find out later. For now, Luz just said she'd like to have a few drinks. Suddenly, an excited Berdine shouted. She asked what kind of strange food the local resident eats, which looks like dirty earth. Lord Noct replied that it was only curry, and that there was no such food in this world. Noct was surprised and immediately wanted to try a real curry. Noct ordered a portion and invited Berdine to try it. The giant girl looked suspiciously at the unfamiliar food and said that it looked like ordinary dirt. The brave Berdine didn't dare try the curry, although she admitted that it smelled very good. The young lord still decided to help the indecisive girl and asked her to just open her mouth. After swallowing a spoonful of curry, Berdine exclaimed that it was incredibly delicious. Cedo and Gilna were surprised by Berdine's reaction and asked them to give them a taste. As a result, everyone who tried the unusual dish was satisfied with the excellent taste of local food. Lord Noct, who greatly missed the cuisine of his homeworld, enjoyed the long-forgotten taste and thought that it was not for nothing that he decided to go on this trip. Berdine suggested that Noct immediately downsize the store and take it home with him. But the young lord reminded her that if Berdine wanted to use this shop, it had to remain a normal size. Noct then promised that as soon as they got back, he would make a great curry himself. Noct noticed that the prices here were quite expensive, but he still decided that he should buy spices for his kitchen so that he could make a real curry at home. And then this taste can be felt even on the territory of Bigsmall. Most of all, Berdine, who was always the most emotional girl among his company, was happy with the delicious dish. Noct looked at the curry and said it reminded him of a blanket. Then the whole group continued to enjoy the local cuisine and enjoy themselves until everyone remembered why they had come here in the first place. Noct and the others eventually made it to the Hardlet family's main building. The local butler announced Lord Noct's arrival, and then invited the guests inside. Inside was a nice-looking guy who immediately apologized for calling Lord Noct to such a remote place. The guy introduced himself as the second person in the Hardlet Norvis family, and he was the lord of these lands. Noct responded by introducing himself and saying that it was a pleasure to meet his neighbor. Lord Norvis suggested that we lose no time in getting straight to the point, and as far as he understands, it will be about the rights to extract the rare fossil manatite. Lord Noct thought that he had checked all his father's files at home, but could not find any information about where the manatite was first found. Lord Noct did not count on the good results of these negotiations, as he did not have any trump cards, and all he hoped to get was at least 40% of all the manatite deposits. But Lord Norvis's statement was completely unexpected. He announced that he was assigning all mining rights to this rare material to his territory and was not going to discuss it. Lord Noct asked why Norvis had decided that. Lord Norvis explained that everything had long been written down in the documents that were passed down in his family, and he was ready to provide them. Noct replied that territorial documents should be shared online with both parties, but it does not have such documents available. Norvis said it was all very strange, but he couldn't help it. Excitedly, Noct asked to see the documents so that he could verify their authenticity for himself. Norvis did not refuse, but offered to see for himself. Noct, looking at the documents, thought that there should be no mistake, because Norvis speaks very confidently, but then I realized that it was all a good fake. However, without proof, it was almost impossible to prove it. Norvis suggested that it might have been during the orc attack on Bigsmall territory that the necessary documents were lost. That's why Lord Noct finds it hard to believe the real state of affairs. Noct replied that the mansion had not been damaged at all during the orc attack, so it was impossible to lose the documents. And what Lord Norvis provided is a very good fake. Lord Norvis immediately demanded proof that his documents were forged. Lord Norvis asked if Noct really wanted them to give up what they were originally legally entitled to. And if Lord Noct dared to say such a thing, then he had made an unforgivable mistake. And now all their disputes can only be resolved by war. After all, this is one of the noble customs that exist to resolve conflicts and disputes. According to custom, the two lords deploy their troops in a pre-arranged territory and fight. This pseudo-war is designed to solve various disputes and problems. Lord Noct knew that he had fallen into a trap. After all, Lord Norvis had deliberately prepared forged documents, and then he suddenly invited me to visit him, so as not to give me time to get evidence. And then, in the dialogue, he immediately issued an ultimatum and declared war. It was obvious that Lord Norvis had planned everything out long ago and was waiting for the right moment. Noct knew that the Lord should not risk his life for the sake of any resources, but if he is now a weakness and bends in front of the enemy, then in the future, his land will be considered weak, and he will be a lord who retreats at the mere mention of a pseudo-war. And when the neighboring Lord Norvis begins to treat Noct in this way, he will immediately be tempted to take away something else besides the Manati resource. And that would be the beginning of the end of the Big Small family. Lord Noct recalled that his country's territory had recently been heavily attacked by orcs and was now very depleted. And so it seems dishonest of Lord Norvis to demand that we start fighting under such unequal conditions. Norvis thought about it and promised that he would only be willing to put up 100 soldiers to even out the odds, and Lord Noct can put as many warriors on the battlefield as he wants or as many as he can. Noct considered this suggestion because there was bound to be another catch. Lord Norvis was quick to answer and asked what Lord Noct's decision would be. Young Lord Noct excused himself to his companions, exclaiming that in the name of Lord Bigsmall, but the second, he accepted the challenge and was ready to settle the dispute in time of war. Norvis happily invited his opponent to decide on the location, date, and time of the battle. He also advised Lord Noctu to prepare well and not be late. On the way home, Lord Noct told Ghislaine and Rog all about it, but they reassured the young master because it was obvious that Lord Norvis had deliberately provoked him to such a decision. Noct said that as soon as he got home, he would have to apologize to everyone else, because the war started because of him. Yahello promised that she would help explain everything, that it was impossible to do otherwise. But as soon as Lord Noct returned home, all of his friends took the news of the upcoming war in stride and expressed their support. Juno revealed that she has invented a new death trap, and it will be a surprise for the enemies. And Greg bragged that he managed to make his monsters even stronger. Cito explained that she had warned everyone in advance to start preparing for the battle. Greg said that Lord Noct looked weak and would get into a lot of fights, but everyone else will never be bored. Greg then asked what they were really going to do in this war. Lord Noct replied that they would not use death traps in the first place. The young lord went on to say that the pseudo-war would only last for 10 days, and it will be held on the plain between the territories of Bigsmall and Hardlet. The use of weapons is determined by the regulations, and it should not be fatal and without the possibility of seriously injuring a person. The winner is the one who can knock out the opponent's lord. The sorceress lioness asked them what their chances of winning were. Lord Noct explained that negotiations had ensured that the enemy force was limited to 100 soldiers. Noct also decided to turn to the Red Dragon for help. Garb asked why Lord Noct was so agitated and what business had brought him here. Noct said that he had a request to make to Lord Dragon. The young lord said that a pseudo-war between the lands of Bigsmall and Hardlet was about to begin, and so it would be a great advantage if Mr. Grubb could use his power to help. Lord Noct admitted that he had to agree to this conflict. After all, the fate of all the inhabitants of his country depended on these negotiations. Noct said that he knew how kind Mr. Grubb was and probably didn't like violence in any form. But without his power, it will be difficult for them to win this war and defend their interests. Lord Noct said that his country has only just begun to develop, but such a test puts all his efforts at risk, and you can't just lose them. The Red Dragon replied that if Lord Noctu was in danger, he was ready to help. Noct thanked Grab for his help and said that he would greatly influence the outcome of the war. Cito said that going to a pseudo-war with a mighty dragon was a great decision, and no one had ever done it before. Sorceress Lioness admitted that she was delighted with this result. Mare, the maid, reminded me that Mr. Noct was a very capable manager. Then, everyone got busy preparing for the upcoming battle and started planning their actions. After a while, Mare's maid announced that a second had arrived from the kingdom. Lord Noct was surprised to see Rebecca in this role, and asked why he hadn't been fired from his position as tax inspector. But Rebecca replied that she was a civil servant and had many different duties, including the position of second. Lord Noct thanked Rebecca for her hard work and confessed that he had expected to see some ordinary secretary from the kingdom. Rebecca explained that she had accepted the role herself in order to learn the secret behind the rapid development of Bigsmall land, And if this secret lies in some skill of Noct, then perhaps the kingdom will ask Noct for help in solving some of its problems in the future. Lord Noct thought that he really didn't want his secret to be known to anyone outside of his circle of friends. Rebecca said that if she hadn't accepted the role, someone who is closely connected to the Hardlet house would have become the second. Lord Noct thanked Rebecca for her help and said he would always remember it. But Rebecca warned that she would make a fair decision to you, no matter what it was. Lord Noct knew that the difference between their forces would be palpable, since Lord Norvis had long planned this pseudo-war. But the country of Bigsmall has hope for the Red Dragon Hornbeam, who can help in this battle. Although at the same time, it is absolutely unknown what forces the enemy will put up and how it can surprise. And there are 3 times as many people on Earth Lord Hardlet's side as there are on Lord Noct's side. Everything was ready for the start of the battle, and the spell of Rebecca's second flew up into the hot sky. This was the beginning of a great battle that would determine the fate of the Bigsmall family. Thus began the long-awaited pseudo-war with the country of Hardlet. The reason for the conflict was a rare resource from the disputed mines, manatite. Tamer Greg declared that he was confident of winning. After all, unlike the warriors of the Hardlet country, who only enjoyed a quiet life, they have a huge advantage in combat experience, as they have previously managed to repel the orc army and destroy their king. Lord Noct replied that he was unfortunately not so sure. After all, this time their opponents are people who are capable of any trick and clearly prepared for this battle. Therefore, for the country of Bigsmall, this will be the first battle between people, and you need to be prepared for any surprises. Young Lord Noct has announced that the duration of the war is 10 days. 4 of them are dedicated to preparing the positions of the troops, and this is one of the main events of all this pseudo-war. Therefore, do not forget that there is no guaranteed way to win a confident victory, since it is definitely the one who is best prepared for the battle that will win. Lord Noct's friends were happy to have a large number of different potions for healing, because it is sure to be useful in battle, even if it is not fatal. Lord Noct said that an important resource, Manati, is at stake, so you can spend a lot of money to win. Lord Noct also admitted that he managed to make a good deal with the merchant Raphael, who sold him the resources at a good discount. Lord Noct's team was elated and confident of winning their cause. In the meantime, Lord Norvis, of course, was watching his opponent and decided that it looked like Lord Noct had used up all the resources available to him. Lord Norvis felt superior and was dismissive when he mentioned Lord Noct. I honestly thought he was a complete fool. Lord Norvis believed that if you were afraid to bet big in any game, you would be afraid to bet big. You can quickly start thinking like an ordinary commoner, and that's the worst thing that can happen. And you may not even notice the moment when you become a loser. And Noct has very low stakes in this battle, because even with his many resources, he has no more than 30 soldiers at most. And this is the decisive factor for winning the battle. After all, without a large number of workers, it is impossible to build a defensive fortress in a short time. Lord Norvis reminded his soldiers that they only had 4 days to build defensive fortifications, so they all had to do their best. Lord Norvis snidely asked his soldiers how they liked a 96-hour shift. The soldiers were shocked at the prospect and started telling each other that it looked like they were all in hell. Rebecca took her role responsibly and carefully observed the preparations of both sides of the conflict. Rebecca decided that as long as she was in charge of everything as a second, Lord Hardlet would not risk using any very dirty fighting methods. Although even without any tricks, his advantage over Lord Noct's forces looks considerable. Rebecca was very interested in what Lord Noct could do to surprise her opponent. Everyone was waiting for the upcoming battle. Someone carefully prepared, and someone watched with interest. A group of sorceresses from the Royal Magic Army led by Lion used earth magic and created a defensive moat. Young Lord Noct also decided to help. The sorceress Lionette asked him what he was going to do, and if he was going to use earth magic again, just like when he went to the mine. Lord Noct explained that he wanted to apply a move, as in the case of a store reshuffle, and with the help of his imagination, he will create the desired block of land. Lord Noct applied the item reduction ability and selected a tedious size for the appropriate block. Lord Norvis, of course, was watching all the actions of his opponents and immediately realized that if they were able to control the soil on such a scale and at such a speed, then he was probably facing a squad of elite earth mages. Norvis admitted that Lord Noct himself was just as good at earth magic, and if you study their territories, it is obvious that the Bigsmall lands are located near a dangerous forest, which means they're used to fighting a lot, and they must be very cunning in their defense skills. The commanders of Norvis soldiers assured that they had nothing to fear and had a solution for their problems. Juno suddenly felt a sharp pain and fell to the ground. Young Lord Noct hurried to the sorceress, not understanding what could have affected her so much. Noct asked her what had happened to her and why she had suddenly become ill. But Juno was in a terrible state and could barely speak clearly. Lord Noct asked why Juno hadn't said anything, since he had lost so much strength during the training. But Juno muttered that she only wanted to be useful to Mr. Noct. Lord Norvis rejoiced at the misery in the enemy camp and said that this sorceress was very stupid, because you can't use such magic so much, and healing potions taste too bad and aren't particularly effective. The sorceress lion admitted that she also feels very weak and cannot continue to use magic. Maid Mare hurried to help the exhausted sorceresses with her cell activation ability. At the same time, Mare grumbled as much as old Joseph about not wasting her magic so recklessly. Gilna and Rog said that it was time for the sorceresses to rest, and now it was their time to work hard. Gilna created the perfect mock-up of the defense structure as always and gave it to Lord Noct. The young master of the Big Small Lands immediately used the ability to increase items, and a beautiful castle of enormous size appeared. Lord Norvis was furious at what he saw and shouted that it was magic. Then Lord Norvis began to feel faint and blurry. Norvis suddenly stood up and began to say something unintelligible, and his soldiers began to discuss whether someone had hypnotized the master.